Hey everybody, we're here. It is week 2, season 7, and the hype is strong. I am on about 4 hours sleep, but I'm like Melisandre today. I'm filled with the fire of fandom. I feel none of this fatigue because I have so much to talk about. We have so much to talk about. Ashea is here with me, and of course we have our good friends at Radio Westeros. Please say hello, Lady Gwyn and Yoke Boy.
Hello?
Hi.
Right on. Good to have you all back. Everyone else is excited that you're here, and so are we. So
It's great to be back. Great to be back.
right on. The episode, of course, is called Stormborn. Obviously, that seems to refer mostly to Euron and Daenerys. We had a few hopes for some White Walker Stormborn stuff or Gendry, but oh well, none of that. Too bad. But there were a lot of book implications, not just things that directly parallel, but things that we should consider whether or not they will happen. Some were just nods to the book, but there's also a lot of history. We got talk about the Grayscale plot. We got some talk about potential death of Dany's dragons, one or more of them. We have Aegon the Sixth friends in the Reach theory, which relates to the Blackfire conspiracy. Nymeria and her Wolfpack, obviously. Euron flat out becomes Victarion for a scene, a long scene, and quite a bit more. So, also I need to announce that from now on, we are no longer discussing the upcoming episode in terms of the trailer and anything we learned through discussing the trailers and things that come from outside the show. We're still not going to discuss set spoilers. We're not going to do that. I mean, not set spoilers, but leaks. No leaks. We're never going to discuss leaks anymore. Not enough people want to do that. We don't want to do that, so it's just not happening. So what we're doing is instead of having that at the end of the episode, we're going to focus more on this episode and how it relates to the books. And instead, we're going to have a special episode every Saturday for the rest of the season where we only talk about predictions for the next episode based on the trailers, based on interviews, based on behind the episode, based on things like that. So that will be a lot of fun. We've got a lot to say about that. But because we have so much to say about that and about this, separate the two. Make them a little more straightforward. So that'll also allow a lot of you guys who are in, say, Europe or Africa or Asia or anything like that to be involved at a time that is more suitable for y'all, because I know this is difficult for people who are not in the U.S. to make this evening time. So we'll be doing that early afternoon Saturday. It'll be announced later this week. If you're subscribed to us on YouTube, you'll get the notification as soon as it happens. Okay. Also want to talk about, real quick, let's start off with a small topic before we get into the meat of it. Just want to get y'all's takes on this. This is something that Sean and I discussed in our show-only episode, which I know a lot of you guys watch also. What did you guys think of this news about the sea potentially being frozen alongside Eastwatch by the Sea, especially given that the opening crawl seems to confirm this? We've seen the graphics, and there's a distinct difference between the old graphics by the Eastwatch by the Sea and the new, which show a very big difference in the texture there. Do you guys have any takes on that?
I guess no one.
No,
I guess not.
I was distracted.
No, I know you. I
Some
know you
people
were.
say that there's only one track that they're hearing. They're only hearing from the left or right ear, and I'm trying to figure that out. So now it's in stereo again, but I have done nothing to fix it. I have no clue why this is happening.
The joys of live streaming. There's never a live stream without a small problem, but y'all are tolerant, and we keep rolling with it, so we'll just keep rolling with it. Apparently the problem's gone. So I guess no one had any comments on the frozen sea thing.
No, I've got a comment.
I was being polite and waiting for
It would
Matt.
be a bit of a cop out if the White Walkers just kind of, walked around the wall. The wall's been up all this time, and it was useless all along. I think it'd be a bit of a cop out if they just froze the sea and walk around. So
What if Daenerys flies over there and melts the sea while they're all walking on it, and then they just sink right in? That would be cool, right?
Things in the waters. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Dead, burned things in the water. Did you have anything different to say about that, Lady Gwyn, or maybe Ash?
I mean, I kind of agree with you, boy, but I obviously noticed it and wondered. I think we probably talked about that before being a possibility. So.
Right on.
But it does seem a little too simple.
So it's easy for, I think most of you guys know already because you've watched our stream before, but it's even easier to tell which one of us is Ashea today. This one, as you can see, this is her, she is now officially sworn to House Get Down.
I have been all along, but now I have proof.
Yes, now she is, her house words are about that bank. So there you go. And I have my Tony Teflon, House Teflon shirt pulling the string. So we're both representing other houses today, helping out the fandom. We love to spread the love, and the community is a great place. So cool on everybody. Also want to plug our Euron and Forsaken chapter episodes that we've done recently. They're up on Acast and YouTube and iTunes and SoundCloud and Google Play and all those fun places. Very relevant to the discussions we're having today because we're going to talk a lot about Euron. And, of course, those are just fun episodes in general. Also, we have several Aziz First Chapter episodes that are available for patrons only or donators only. One of them is on the Feast for Crows prologue, and one of them is on the Game of Thrones prologue. And both of those have a lot of relevance to things that are happening in the show right now, especially the Old Town one, which is the Feast for Crows. Definitely want to give a shout out to Radio Westeros' patrons as well. A lot of you guys are coming over here to watch your favorite Radio Westeros pair over here with us. So thank you all for joining us, and definitely be aware that Radio Westeros is a fantastic show and worthy of your patronage as well.
You didn't know already.
Yeah, if you didn't know already, I'm telling you stuff you already knew, but it deserves to be said again. And
it's great to unite our listeners and show everyone, that we can work as a four, Yeah. You're great friends, and it's great to be on your show.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we're all really, this is just fun every week. That's why I'm not tired, even though I haven't sleep, because this is just really fun. How could I be tired when I'm having this much fun? Also, thanks to our Dragon Rider patrons, we have Lord Mark of House Joseph, the Snow and Winterfell, rider of Mazalacartho, the white dragon with green scales, horns, wings, and talons. Can you tell I had it all written out this time because I said it perfectly? And welcome to Talanis the Talon, King of Gogassos, rider of Talarius, a red dragon with scales, horns, and talons of midnight black. We don't have art for Talarius yet, but that is incoming. Also, thanks to Jeff Gnarly, the Long Snapper, History of Westeros' first sword, deadly with the blade. Speaking of dragons, that skull, huge, and then followed by a huge wolf, and huge dragon. So that, man, the scenery in this season already has been just outstanding. Some of the settings and the sets they put together, wow, I'm just gushing here.
Did I miss Mazalacartho?
Yeah, I guess so. I said it, but there she is. There's Mazalacartho. There's Mazalacartho.
Hey, it's
cool
he or she.
That's true. In fact, that's a good place to start. We're going to Dragonstone, where there is a grammar lesson as part of this scene. But we'll start with the scene before it, which is confronting Varys. What did you guys think of this? I thought it was necessary, but pretty well done. What about you guys?
Well, I had to wonder why now. Varys has been with her since season 5. So I didn't see any particular impetus in the scene that, why she was having this conversation with him now. I wondered if you guys had any thoughts about that.
I don't know. I think maybe they just decided to wait on it. Yeah,
I think they just decided to wait on it, but I do think it addresses, I don't know, it's a slight plot hole. I hesitate to even call it a plot hole. It's just a character flaw, but it's something we've thought about for a long time, which is, if there's no young Griff, why was Varys supporting Viserys with all of his knowledge about this person? You would think Varys would know that he is not an ideal king or anything like that. And so they somewhat address it here. He kind of just says, didn't know, like Littlefinger not knowing about Ramsay. Varys, one of the most
very similar
tuned in people in all of Westeros, didn't know about this. I don't know.
I don't think it's a plot hole so much as that he's lying. I think he is lying about why he backed Viserys, and that makes sense. He's saving his own skin, just like that whole scene is about. He's like, I had to save my own skin. She's accusing him of saving himself, and well, it's happening again as she's talking to him, I think. And it's interesting because there's a lot of little things that touch on. There's some book nods here. The way he talks about For the People is a lot like how he talks to Kevin Lannister and Ned Stark, in early in a Game of Thrones. Lady Gwyn, you had some takes here, I believe? Or no, I'm sorry, this is Shaya's take here.
No.
That's what I just said.
You just said that. Okay, I'm getting my color coding wrong.
It.
Apparently being a little tired is affecting me after all. Now, if they... But I had a little theory here that I think it's a little crackpotty because I don't actually expect Varys to turn on Daenerys in here. I don't think there's time for it. I don't know why he would do it. I don't know who he would turn on her for. That's the other thing. Like, who is he going to side with if he turns on her? That's the problem. So the one thing I can see...
Jon Snow.
Yeah, he's going to go back Jon Snow. He's going to decide to go back to Cersei after all. No, he... In the books, there's the whole concept of the Citadel being anti-magic / anti-dragon. The Citadel never tried to remove any king from office, as far as we know, though. But they did try to get rid of the dragons because they think the dragons are bad for humanity, bad for the world that they're trying to build, as Marwyn would put it. And that is true. Dragons are bad for people. They're too powerful, too dangerous, too hard to control. Look at what happened in the Dance of the Dragons. Once there was 18 or 20 dragons out there, it just eventually hit a civil war, and it was horrible. And that was a foregone conclusion. Of course there was going to eventually be a civil war when there's this much power concentrated in such few hands, and they all have these powerful, nuclear beasts to back it all up. And so I can see maybe that's what Varys does. Maybe he decides to kill the dragons in secret and without actually turning on Dany, just getting rid of the dragons. So that I don't actually think this is going to happen, but if Varys turns on Dany, this is how I could see it happening. But again, I don't really think it's going to happen at all. We don't think we have time for Varys to turn on Dany, and it's kind of hard to see where it would go. But the fact that Tyrion vouches for him and vouches for Jon, and we can't, it just feels like something has to go wrong with all that. Does anyone else have a take on that, or am I just making stuff up?
Yeah, I would think everything's going a little too well for kind of the people you want it to go well for at this point. So obviously, and things are going to start to go wrong, and they have. So we'll probably see a little bit more of that.
Yeah, obviously,
go good.
Daenerys' first forays into military endeavors so far in Westeros, they start off with start off badly, as we can see, and it may get worse before it gets better. We'll see. Interesting that Dany threatens to burn Varys alive if he turns on her just before Melisandre shows up. That's kind of funny there. Any interesting timing. We have a question sent to us in advance from Jared. Now remember, if you send questions in advance, it gives us a little more time to include them in the episode. It gives us a little more time to think about them. If you don't send us questions in advance, please use the Super Chat feature, which is a live donation, which we split with Radio Westeros, and for their help today and for all this season. The fact is that the chat room is so busy that we just can't keep up with it. So the Super Chat enables your comment to stay at the top of the chat box for quite a while, which makes sure that we see it. So if you want to do that, go right ahead. Again, the question from Jared is, does Varys still have his little birds? If so, no news about the Ironborn? Well, what's funny is the person who seemed to have advanced knowledge of where the ships were was Euron, not Daenerys and not Varys. But I think that Euron kind of just figured that out. It's kind of obvious. There's ships kind of becoming to and from Dragonstone. It's an island, so of course that's going to happen. Do you guys have any takes on the whole aspect of little birds? Do you think Varys might steal them back from Qyburn or anything like that?
Yeah, well, I think that the answer is that the little birds are now working for Qyburn. So that's anyone's guess whether Varys can win them back, I guess. I'm sure he'll try if he has the opportunity. If
that's a thing if they want to give Varys more to do, that would be a thing. Have him go up against Qyburn, in a war of the Whisperers or something like that.
I'd like to see Varys versus Qyburn.
Yeah, right. But it is unclear what Varys' status is with regards to his whispering network at this point. He certainly still seemed to have it when he was making deals with the Tyrells and Martells. So, I got to figure that he's not just totally out of the loop. But, yeah, he's got to do more than he has, I think. All right, let's talk about Tyrion and his great plans. I think the scene encapsulates that Tyrion is very intelligent. He has a great understanding of politics, and he's applying it to war. But he makes some errors in judgment with tactics. There's some great strategy here, but some tactical mistakes. They just totally didn't account for Euron, and that burned them badly. He was smart about the need to where each army should be based on how people are going to perceive it, and he was totally on point by guessing exactly how Cersei would speak to the Lords of the Reach and the realm in general about, what kind of propaganda she would use. She's the Dragon Queen, she's the Mad King's daughter, all that. That's exactly what happened. So what did you guys get from that scene?
I think that was really important because it showed how well Tyrion can get inside Cersei's head, which is going to be important for them going forward. She, on the other hand, hasn't displayed any such sort of finer quality. So, I think they have an advantage as far as that goes.
Yeah, and aside from the advantages he mentions, Tyrion, it's easy to miss that Tyrion is behaving kind of the opposite of how his father would, because we're kind of more thinking it's easier to focus on Daenerys not acting like the Mad King. But it's also easy to see that Tyrion, like Tywin, would go just for the throat, like the Sand Snakes wanted to, and Olenna wanted to. Tyrion is not that kind of lion. So I think that's an interesting parallel there. The foreign army concerns, and we've talked about that a lot. That's going to have major implications in the books, because not only are the Dothraki a problem, so far Daenerys is keeping the Dothraki on Dragonstone, so we haven't seen how that's going to work out. But clearly, just their presence is working against her, because, that's the main argument Jaime used to sell Randall Tarley on flipping sides, which we'll get to later. So it remains to be seen how they're going to be used, but in the books, there's also going to be this aspect of R'hllor and their engagement with the followers of the Seven, which is going to not go well, I would guess. So that's the whole thing that's not even part of this. Plus, she's going to be bringing over slaves and all these other things. It's not just the Unsullied and the Dothraki. So I think this plot, this aspect is going to matter a lot more in the books. And another interesting aspect, Lady Gwen, you've got some notes here. Tyrion is basically the only real male leader in the room there, although it's kind of implied that Grey Worm had part of the planning ahead of time. But still, this is almost all female leaders.
Yeah. It's something that I think we've discussed quite a bit, maybe last season, is the growing importance of women as leaders. They pointed out after the episode, but of course, it's down to George for writing these women in these roles in the first place, so even if there is just significant difference from the books, but still we see in this scene how it all sort of comes to a head, all those threads with Dany and Yara, Ellaria and Olenna, just they're planning their takedown of Cersei and another woman who's now in a place of power. So I thought it was a really cool scene.
Yeah. Here's a question from Darren the Red, Knight of the Forums. Tyrion's plan to ship in the Dornish rather than march them to King's Landing or pick them up on the way. Bad writing or a bad plan? I think it's a bad plan, or it's basically what I was touching on earlier about how Tyrion understands a lot of these aspects, but in terms of the military minutiae, he's a little out of his depth. Too bad they don't have Barristan for that. That Barristan would be perfect for that. That said, they do have someone who is perfect for this sort of thing, but he's a little busy getting treated for grayscale right now. Jorah was the guy who gave Daenerys the best military advice until Barristan came along, and then they were kind of sort of equals in that regard. Barristan certainly had more experience, but Jorah had more experience in Essos and with the way Essos fighting style. So they were a good team there that currently Dany doesn't have. Daenerys could also get some military advice from Jon, potentially. Jon has all kinds of great military leadership around him, mixed in with people who don't understand politics. So you might have a good fit there. Team Dany is full of great politickers and not much military intelligence or skill or experience. And Jon has the opposite. So maybe that'll work out really well. But before that, we have Olenna telling her to be a dragon, which is very different than how she was before. And it seems pretty clear that this is a lot to do with Olenna's change, which is that she has no future anymore. In our show only review, I compared her to Mirri Maz Duur. And we also have this question of no Iron Throne at the end. Does anybody? Well, Yolkboy, you have some takes here on Olenna.
Yeah, Olenna as an advisor, she seems clearly motivated by revenge on Cersei, as you're saying. What she got left. Her house is in utter ruin. They're such a proud house, aren't they? And what have they got? And that's after Cersei's wildfire explosion, with Tyrion's plans to take Castle Rock seeming to kind of suit his ambitions, perhaps. It's nice to see this kind of realism of Dany's advisors all looking out for themselves, essentially. They're giving this advice, but there's this undertone of selfishness, and their advice is obviously contradictory. So Dany's got to choose wisely, as a good queen would.
I totally agree. Our co-writer Joe Buckley of Tower of the Hand mentions that, or wonders rather, if she's giving intentionally bad advice to try to just con Daenerys into fulfilling her revenge, which might very well be what's happening. I don't know if Olenna even is aware that she would be doing that, but I think Daenerys is smart enough to realize that possibility. So far, it's not happening. It's, Daenerys is not going to listen to that, but I think she may. I think she might be forced to.
Yeah, I thought this was a really interesting scene. It was a scene I had never really considered as a possibility, despite knowing that Olenna was with Daenerys. I hadn't really thought of the two of them just having a scene together. But it really excited me when it happened because, Olenna has lived through so much in her life and just has a lot of life experience. But whether you argue whether her advice was good or not, I thought that it was really striking the contrast and counterpoint that it had to what Jon Snow's, advice should be in this situation, which is listen to other people, talk to people about your plans beforehand. Whereas Daenerys here is getting counsel to do the opposite, that she's listening to people a little too much and that she needs to listen to herself and make her own decisions.
Yeah. I see, real quick, I don't want to go away from this topic yet, but I see real quick in the chat box, someone mentions, has there been a beautiful death rendering for episode 1 and 2? I haven't seen the episode 2 one yet, but there is one for episode 1. It's really good.
Yeah, it's obviously the phrase.
Yeah, check that out. Yeah, it's really good. Okay, but back to that, I do think that what Olenna is saying is becoming necessary, even if Dany doesn't want to follow her advice. Right off the bat, her plan to besiege King's Landing is falling apart because now they don't have a navy to ferry the Dornish army up, and they may not even have the Dornish army. That's something we'll touch on later when we talk about the impact of what happened to the Sand Snakes in Ellaria. But that, if things get bad for Dany, she may have no choice but to go all dragon on everyone. And that is going to be kind of tragic if she has to cause the deaths of innocents to win this war. And that'll be difficult on her. That'll be really interesting. Okay, we have a question from Carrie Neves. Olenna's advice to Dany is that a reference to Quaithe in a dream telling Dany to remember she's a dragon? The quote that I pulled here is shadows and whispers. What else had Quaithe said? The pale mare and the sun's son? There was a lion in it too, and a dragon. Or am I the dragon? So, yeah, I guess that could be a nod to that. I'm not sure. I wonder, that may be a little too under the radar for them to be referring to that. But, we can say sure. It fits pretty well. We also have a question from Sir Selvus Redblade of White Harbor. Do you think Daenerys is going to listen to Olenna and become more dragon in her actions when she finds out about Euron's attack? Yeah, as I was just saying, I think this is one of the things that will push her in that direction. And I think the story would be more dramatic if that's the case. We all talked a lot at length about Daenerys' army being too powerful. And that was even brought up in this council session, which I appreciate. They're saying, yeah, you could easily conquer King's Landing, but yeah, you would cause all this innocent people to die, and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. One of the themes of A Song of Ice and Fire is that being good, being honorable, being noble does have a price. It's a price worth paying, but it's not easy to be a good guy. It's not easy to do things the right way. It's a lot of times is easier to do things the quote unquote wrong way, the immoral way. And that's life. And I like that, they touch on that because we all, I think, appreciate some of the very realistic, harsh things that George puts in the novels. And this is an example of that. Right. Any more takes on Olenna and Dany? Okay.
I think we had a little thing to talk about with Olenna there.
Sure, what's that?
Oh, just the fact that, she talks about how she's seen so many different rulers during her time period, and she really has, but I think she's understating that she has seen some good rulers and some times of peace.
Yeah. Okay, so if we go through them real quick, she was born during Aegon V's reign. That's Egg. That was Daenerys' great-grandfather. And then Jaehaerys II, who only ruled for 3 years, and he faced the War of Ninepenny Kings, but that never even touched the shores of Westeros. They never got as far as the Stepstones. Then Aerys himself, whereas a lot of Aerys' reign was peaceful, until obviously Robert's Rebellion broke out and it was terrible, but the early part of his reign was solid. It was good. And then Robert, Joffrey, Tommen, and now Cersei. So she's seen more change of the regime in the last few years than she had previously all combined.
So she's seen 7 kings or queens on the Iron Throne so far.
That's
I guess
right.
now Daenerys is her 8th, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess, do we count Renly in that too?
I guess we could. If we got to count Renly, we can count a few others. I mean, yeah, she could be counting, Robb and all those other ones. They count, yeah. But what Olenna also hasn't seen is a Targaryen regime backed by actual dragons. And ironically, she was born into the regime of Aegon V, who said, if I had dragons, I could make all the reforms I wanted. The lords of Westeros wouldn't push back against me so much. How about that? Nice little parallel there. Okay, so let's talk about the Melisandre scene. Let's go on to that. The language lesson. Let's see, Yoke Boy, give us a language lesson here.
Yeah, well, this is from the books. Let's go to the books because we're doing a book comparison, aren't we? So
Yes.
This Valyrian lesson is established by Maester Aemon to Samwell in A Feast for Crows. He says this: the error crept in from the translation. Dragons are neither male nor female. Bath saw the truth of that. But now one and now the other, as changeable as flame. Misled us all for 1,000 years. And that's when he asserts to Samwell that Dany could be the princess that was promised, that's echoing in the show now. But there's a caveat, bearing in mind the essential criteria in the books about the prince or princess that was promised is that they're born of the Ares Rhaella line. Remember that Aemon doesn't know about Jon Snow's heritage and that he fits the criteria. So if you narrow it down, the only 2 people who do fit the prophecy are Dany and Jon, assuming that Aegon is fake. So in the show, at least, Mel now predicts roles for both Dany and Jon as savior figures. So a lot of people will be doing book theorizing off that scene, where Mel seems to allude to both of them being a part of this grand prophecy.
So obviously we have Daenerys and Jon Snow meeting to look forward to, and that's pretty monumental in terms of a series milestone. And there's a lot to say about that. But since we're talking about Melisandre, I want to bring up Davos and consider what might happen when they're reunited, because obviously Jon Snow isn't happy with Melisandre either. So I do wonder how that's going to go. We've gotten a few questions about that. And one thing I want to mention with regards to that is that Daenerys is very won over by Melisandre so far. So that's potentially problematic, because she immediately was like, oh yeah, you Red Priest did a great job over there in Meereen. You really helped with the peace. And she appreciates that Melisandre, like Varys, was a slave and rose to where she is now through, coming up through the ranks and just being tough and a person that rises to the top. So right off the bat, Daenerys' first impression of Melisandre is really positive. And of course, we all have a very different attitude towards Melisandre. That's a lot more mixed, if not loathing for, some people are still pretty mad about Shireen, which is a totally fair thing to be mad about. But there's a few things that didn't come up here. Well, actually, yeah, we wonder about how this is all going to come down as far as Jon having Winterfell, and they don't necessarily know about Ramsay down there. I think it seems like because of Hot Pie's word, maybe that is common knowledge now. Now, Lady Gwen, you have some thoughts on this reuniting.
Well, it's not going to be a very happy reunion, is it? When you said, and basically, I was kind of getting at this, what you were just saying, that, it was interesting that Dany was quick enough to forgive Melisandre for for serving Stannis and it not going very well when she was there in the room with Varys. But given what she could learn from them being Jon and Davos, it'll be interesting to see if she changes her tune at all. Although the big question is, will she necessarily learn anything from Jon and Davos? And I think Yolkboy had some thoughts about that.
Yeah, take it away.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if Mel will just keep herself very scarce for the visit, go and hide somewhere because, she's at the center of a storm, isn't she? I don't imagine the writers want to get too bogged down in Melisandre's crimes, as, horrible as they were and as serious as they were. I think they will want to prioritize the discussion about the army of the undead, the prince that was promised, the politics of Westeros. There's so much for Dany and Jon to discuss, as well as perhaps a little bit of flirting, I'm expecting. And so I don't see the writers wanting to get sidetracked by Melisandre. I think the scene is too important for her to kind of hijack it.
There's certainly indication from one of the early trailers that Melisandre is watching this group of Northerners arrive from that long walkway, but this theory could still work. Yeah, she could see them coming and go, oh, time to get out of here, time to go hide. Dragonstone's a big place. She could definitely find a place to hide. Grey Worm's not using his room anymore. He left, so she can go hang out there, which is awkward because that's Shireen's room. So, yeah, maybe don't do that.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, some astute watchers noted that was apparently Shireen's room.
That's sad.
Yeah. Why do I have to keep bringing Shireen up? Damn. I mean, we're going to do it again because we're going to talk about Grayscale later, so oh well.
She's always with us.
She is. She's always with us, indeed. Question from Ingrid Rossi. Melisandre seemed to imply there is more than one prince that was promised. If that's the case, wouldn't it be thematically fitting for them to have 3 like the Head of the Dragons? Also very interesting that Melisandre said the prince that was promised will come and bring the dawn. Do you think there is really a chance we will see Dawn or a version of it in the series? No. Well, we kind of technically saw a version of Dawn in Sir Arthur Dayne's hands in that flashback. I think that's all we're going to get. I don't think we're going to have any more Dawn or House Dayne in the show at all. Do you guys think otherwise?
No, I agree.
No, I think this dawn is referring to the end of the long night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And I think that the 3 George has specified that the 3rd head of the dragon does not necessarily need to be a Targaryen. So that is, it's kind of funny that you have 2 maybe prophesied heroes riding dragons and a 3rd dragon rider who's just some person. But that might be what we're headed for. Mm-hmm. We have a super chat from Carrie Neves who asked a question earlier, and oops, it's I've just lost it.
Here goes these.
Oh, I've got it. She says, I was referring to remember who you are, Daenerys. The dragons know. Do you? That is the quote she was referring to. That is more direct. Very good. Thanks for posting that. And she's basically saying, do you know that you're a dragon? So that is very close to what Olenna was saying. Good catch, Carrie. I like that. That was really good. All right, let's move on. Get back to the document here. We have another question from the Bastard of the Wolfswood. Do you think that the Lord of Light is giving each Red Priest a different vision in the flames? Why is Westeros not seeing a large migration of R'hllor followers preparing for the great battle to come? I'm crossing my fingers in hopes Kinvara sends the fiery hand of R'hllor to support Dany and Tyrion. Well, there's a chance we see that in Season 7. I kind of feel like that's not going to happen this season, if at all. But I am 100% sure that is going to be addressed in the books. As I've said, at large, the R'hllor followers are something that the show seems to not be doing much of. Obviously, there's R'hllor followers, but it's mostly just a Red Priest. It's not the rank and file, worshippers. I think those will play a big part in the book, and I'm excited to see how that's handled because it's going to be just a big, epic thing, I got to think. Any other takes on that? Okay, let's move on then. Let's talk about the Grey Worm Missandei scene. Doesn't have a lot of book implications, which for people who didn't like that scene, I guess that's good for y'all. But I thought the scene was really good, and I thought it was, not only was it really well done, like you can complain about them using that scene all you want, I will not agree with you. And I also will seriously argue with anyone who says that scene wasn't well done, because that acting
complain about the length.
Yeah, that maybe is a little fair, because, we do have limited time. That's the only complaint I won't argue with someone about. But the fact that they did it at all, because it was really well done, the dialogue was great, the acting was great, And it felt like a scene from Feast for Crows. It felt like that kind of scene where they show the people who aren't in charge and how they're dealing with everything, and that slice of life is really important. And we got a lot of that in Feast for Crows.
Yeah, no, I thought this was a really important scene for a number of reasons, really. One, you can't... Will you leave the document on the screen for me, Aziz?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
One, you can't just show the brutality of war and all that without showing the good and the hope and the trust and the people who are building themselves back up and, falling in love with one another. And yeah, maybe it went on a minute too long. I didn't need to really see that much of a sexual scene. But what I am most disappointed about myself is that I wanted to see what was going on down there with Grey Worm myself. I felt gypped. I felt like I should have seen that. Also, I wanted to see them, get a little experimental. I wanted to see them get freaky there. At least they did something. But then that scene would have been 10 minutes, and people would have hated it even more.
You're the only one. You're the only one who wanted that scene to be longer, Shay.
I just wanted it to be different. I wanted it to just cut right to whatever carnage is going on there.
Sunday might have wanted it to be longer too. Sorry, couldn't resist.
But also, the other thing about this scene is that it got me more invested in Grey Worm's character, and he's about to go off to war where he could die, than I ever had been before this episode. And right now, he's going to be my worry of the week. I really don't want anything to happen to him.
Okay, right on. That is good. Yeah, and then that's going to come up later. When we talk about the Sand Snakes, we're going to talk about how that scene was still really powerful, but their deaths didn't hit very hard because most people just don't like them, and so if you don't care about a character, it's hard to care about their death or any tension they're in. But now that Grey Worm has more tension, we care about him more. He's opened his heart. He's more emotional. Like, we're closer to him, as human beings, attaching ourselves to a character than we've ever been, and that absolutely adds a reason to worry about him. Okay, question from Gregor the Toasty, Lord of the Bread Fort, the most delicious place in the north. Mm-hmm. With Jon going to Dragonstone, there is a possibility that he will interact with the dragon. If a dragon has a positive interaction with Jon, do you think it could be a clue to one of the characters, specifically Tyrion, about his true lineage? Okay, does anyone else, when you hear that question, does anyone else think of Brown Ben Plum and that scene where the dragons liked him?
Oh, yeah. And
we've all been waiting for that to happen in the books at some point, right? Like that's going to happen to a character that doesn't know they're a Targaryen, or that something like that. That scene wasn't just about Brown Ben Plum. That was foreshadowing, right?
Yeah.
So that could happen here. And Tyrion it's a good call by Lord Gregor to note that Tyrion would be the one to notice that, or to, catch it, or to realize, hey, what's going on here? What's up with that?
Yeah, I think it'll be like a raised eyebrow at the very least, just to pick up on it.
Maybe they're building slowly.
They were the dragons were kind of, he had a positive interaction with dragons too. Let's not forget. So
that's true. That is true. Yeah, and that's probably coming soon too. We can hope. Yeah. Question from Liana Kelly: do you think Jon might need to be rescued by Rhaegal when they go to the Dragon Pit, assuming that happens, similar to what happened with Dany back in Season 5? It doesn't seem like Cersei would honestly be considering cooperation. I sense a double cross, and this could push Jaime over the edge. Well, there's no guarantee that that Jon is going to go to the Dragon Pit, if anyone goes to the Dragon Pit, but that would be an interesting parallel for them to kind of come full circle with that. I think maybe we're getting too far ahead of ourselves making predictions with which dragon Jon may have. I do think Rhaegal is the best guess because of his father being Rhaegar. That seems like a solid guess. But I'm not sure. That maybe is a little too specific of a thing to guess at. Do you guys have any takes on that?
Not yet.
Does Jon get a wolf and a dragon then?
And a Valyrian steel blade or two. Yeah, he's just getting all the stuff.
and maybe
and
Dany
the
as
Dragon
well.
Queen too.
In the books, I'm still hoping he'll get that armor.
Oh, maybe he'll get Euron's armor. Yeah, someone. Yeah, because of that black armored in black ice comment or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, since we're talking about Jon and Dany at the same time, this is a good segue to move on to the north and the northern plots here. Okay, so Jon, I've had a little more time to think about this, as we all had, and I know a lot of people are annoyed by Jon just having these conversations in front of everybody, not talking to Sansa at a time, and this is not very good leadership. And I tend to agree. I agreed even more thoroughly before. However, I think, and I do think it's a mistake. I do think this is a bad way to lead. But I think what Jon is doing is he's trying to avoid any notion of making backroom conversations and making big decisions behind the scenes. He wants all these decisions to be made by consensus. And you can kind of see how he wants to. He's trying to sort of lead sort of democratically. Even though he's making the final decisions, but he doesn't want these things. He wants everything out in the open. Which
while keeping things from Sansa, the one person who needs to know it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I can see your argument there. I can see Jon's reasoning, but I think it's a huge mistake.
Oh, yeah.
And it just drives me crazy. I just want him to learn his lesson in some way, and I honestly just like Jon as a character a little less due to him doing this again. Like, all he has to do is just stop springing the news on Sansa in a public place where she can't have a good reaction to it. It doesn't have them. They don't have a united front with it.
He's about to put her in charge. He should trust her more with the information ahead of time and stuff. Yeah, it's a little awkward for sure, if not a lot awkward.
He needs a small council.
Yeah. Now,
go
ahead.
No, sorry.
Okay. So, now a lot can happen while Jon is gone too, and. Sansa's going to have some interesting things to deal with, from Bran arriving to Arya arriving, and of course Bran is technically the real heir to everything. Yeah.
Whether they'll actually go there or push it, it seems like that'll be what Sansa has to deal with. But I also had another interesting idea. I did a guest spot on Game of Owns, and I thought about something I'd never really considered before, which is like, Jon said a king has to meet with a queen. I'm the only one that can go. I'm pretty positive that he could have sent, Sansa, and that they could have brokered a peace with her involved. And I don't know about you guys, but I had never once considered Sansa meeting with Daenerys, even though it's pretty imminent that Daenerys is going to come more north and Sansa is going to be part of this effort. So I think that they will interact, maybe next season.
Yeah.
But it could have happened here.
Sansa, I agree, except for to say that I don't think, because Sansa isn't on Jon's wavelength with what the bottom line is, that she wouldn't have made a great emissary, because only Jon, who was really seen, like he says, I'm the one who's seen the Night King. Only I understand how grave this threat is, blah, blah, blah. Plus his point about, she needs to meet me.
There's all these reasons why we would never have considered it as a possibility. It just never crossed my mind. It just was slam dunk. Jon is going to meet with Daenerys.
Let's hope that we get a Sansa-Daenerys scene later.
I think it seems like we will. And Daenerys and Arya and all these things are going to happen. I don't think it'll be this season, but next season it's going to be exciting.
So, Lady Gwen, tell us about what you think about that scene, about what Sansa points out. You had some takes on that.
Well, like you said, Jon, he knows better than anyone how important that it is for him to go to see Dany. But Sansa points out all the Starks who have gone south, starting with their grandfather and then and their father, and then somebody else points out Robb. And they've all done this only to die. But Jon just persists in what I saw as really channeling Ned. He was making kind of altruistic decisions, even though they're controversial, but just really kind of do it himself. It has to be me because I'm the leader, and because of the things that he's seen. So I also thought it was interesting that leaving Sansa in charge of Winterfell, for me, had echoes of Ned leaving Cat in charge back in season 1.
What do you think, York Boy?
I think Jon leaving the North is, leaving his rule quite vulnerable. Another echo of Ned and Robb. His own subjects are upset that he's defied them and he's going south. And Littlefinger is kind of skulking around, planning things. So I expect to see, the fruits of his plans in upcoming episodes, I think, with Sansa. I think Littlefinger wouldn't mind being in charge of Winterfell with Sansa, as he kind of confessed his love this episode. I think we're going to see a very persuasive Littlefinger. It'll be interesting to see what he comes up with. He might have tricks up his sleeve to cause unrest for Jon while he's away. This could range from leaking information about his birth to maybe even plotting against him more aggressively. So expect Sansa's kind of resolve to be tested, and that you should have stayed. Should have stayed in your castle theme to be played on. It's going to be really interesting to see what dynamics take root. Remembering Bran is about to turn up as well to complicate things.
Okay, we have a super chat from Mr. Mitchell 954. Thank you very much. Will the Brotherhood Without Banners go to Winterfell first or straight to Eastwatch? And Clegane will be the first one to reveal Baelish's betrayal of Ned, right? I would think Winterfell for that reason. Because
I had never really considered them going straight to Eastwatch. It didn't cross my mind. I guess it is technically possible, but I think it makes a lot of sense to stop somewhere where you can, have refuge for a little while before you head up.
Yeah, they may not even know to go to Eastwatch. Like how
would they know?
How would they know about Eastwatch? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's not even a maester at Castle Black right now. We're not sure there's even one at Eastwatch. So yeah, the news of what's happening in the north may not be widely known enough for that. But I think Winterfell, and I think Sandor. It just gives us so much dramatic possibility for Sandor to be there, to potentially meet Arya again, to meet Sansa again, and Brienne as well. There's so many interesting reconnections there. Plus, just Arya and the rest of the Brotherhood has a little potential as well. Yeah. So, a lot of possibilities. I hope they do that. You know. So maybe this is more hope than what we expect. But hey, whatever.
Yeah. Another thing I was thinking about with this scene before we move on from this to take more questions about this Sansa scene is something that I hadn't thought about much before someone brought it up to me, which is I wonder how much of Sansa's visible reaction at that, meeting there, that council meeting was for Littlefinger's benefit, was calculated. How much of it was her real reaction, whether she was reining it in or letting her disappointment show. I mean, she clearly looks over at Littlefinger, and part of that is that she can see his reaction, but I think she has to know that he's observing her as well, and that she has to give him a very certain reaction to show him that maybe there is hope for him when actually she isn't that upset about this.
That would be really cool if she's playing a deeper game and showing him reactions that he will be fooled by. Because he, as we know, isn't on top of his game when he's dealing with her. He is liable to misread her because he's got so much of his own, emotions wrapped up in everything to do with her. So that's pretty cool. Here and on point with that is a question from Haima Helminth, captain of the Whispering Children. Given Book Sansa's existing and possible future ties with the Vale, do you see show Sansa gaining the allegiance of the Knights of the Vale independent of Littlefinger? And if so, how? Well, that is a huge consideration. That's pretty much the whole reason Littlefinger's still there. If it weren't for the Vale Knights, I think they would have just been like, get the hell out of here, dude. We do not want you here. Because Sansa is super cold to him. Jon is even colder, grabbing him by the neck and all. And no one seems to particularly want him there. But no one can deny that he's valuable because he runs the Vale Knights. They've been giving Bronze Jan Royce a good bit of lines here and there, just a few lines here and there. And I wonder if maybe that's what we're headed towards. Jan Royce doesn't like Littlefinger either. Littlefinger really backed him into a corner and threatened him and all that. So, and Royce is just not a fan of Littlefinger. So that could be something to do with it. I think that might be why Royce is still getting lines, because we need someone else from the Vale to be involved in this at all. Because if it's true, if Littlefinger's out of the picture, he's in charge of the Vale Knights, and we need that. That's the fact that his presence is there almost is a bad thing for Littlefinger. Just the fact that character's getting lines.
I'm trying to see more of Sweet Robin. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say that's a really, really great point. I think that's a really, I hadn't thought of it. Well, that's brilliant.
Thanks.
But do you guys think we'll see Sweet Robin?
Do you think, if so, does that mean that she might consider marrying him? Because she can dominate him. That would be the kind of marriage that she would absolutely be the one wearing the pants in that family, to borrow a cliched expression.
I guess feel safer. I don't know. I don't think it's that likely. But I do think that if she talked to him about Littlefinger, he would side with her 100%. I don't even think he would have a conflicted feeling about it. I think if she told him anything about Littlefinger, he would believe Sansa over him.
Yeah, she has that advantage that
they're family, they're kin, and she's a pretty girl that he looks up to in some way. It's easy.
Just a hand on his arm at the right moment, right when this goes a long way.
Make the bad man fly.
Ooh, yeah. Question from Lord Brandon Brewer of Castle Blackroon. Just a comment, but how fitting would it be for Arya to make her way north and at some point be seated as Lady of the Dreadfort, and she can truly bolt on any face she needs? Ha! It's too bad we have real Sansa and fake Arya as the two, ladies of the Dreadfort in the various canons. Neither of them are real Arya. Nice one. I appreciate the pun, of course. Of course I appreciate the pun. Another question from Matthias Lezu. In one of Jon Snow's, or possibly Sam's chapters, I'm not sure which, Mormont's Raven in the Castle Black Rookery says something like, corn, king, corn. If the books go the same way as the TV show, is this a reference to Jon being king in the north or king of Westeros? Any thoughts on that?
I think it means there's going to be a corn king. Really?
Wait,
infamous
is this True
Cornhole.
Detective? Are we talking about a different show here? Oh, the Corn Code. Yeah. Oh, boy.
That is the quote that spawned the infamous Corn Code.
The Corn Code is one of the craziest theories, one of the most what the hell theories I've ever seen. Anyway, so I guess we don't know. I guess it's hard to say. I do think Jon will become king in the north in the book, so say that's a safer bet probably, because I'm not nearly as sure that he will ever be king of the Iron Throne. That's a lot less sure. So, Aziz is the corny king. Come on. Thanks, Pipes Payday Podcast. Thanks, TJ. Yes, I am. Or the pun king. I'm the pun king, right?
It's the same thing.
I'm only like the corny. I'm only like a lord of corny. Yeah. I don't quite a high rank there.
Lord of the Corn Court.
Question from our buddy LML, Mythical Astronomy of Ice and Fire podcast and videos as well. What up to Lady Gwen and the notorious yoke boy, Aziz and Ashea? Thanks. It's interesting that the show is sending Jon to meet Dany before Jon knows he's Rhaegar and Lyanna's son. Yeah, that is a little surprise. I think we all kind of thought it would go the other way. Do you think the books will do something similar, giving the reader the RLJ reveal through a brand vision or some other means before Jon finds out, as opposed to Jon learning the secret from Lyanna or Ned's ghost while Jon awaits resurrection? If so, how long do you think George will let Jon go without him realizing he's a dragon? Might he even end the story without Jon ever knowing? As weird as that sounds, it's not impossible. If the importance of his dragon blood will be magical as opposed to Jon making a claim for the Iron Throne, it's possible Jon's magic blood could play its role without Jon realizing that he's part Targaryen. I favor a reveal straight to Jon in the crypt, but what do you four think? How will it come in the books? Good question. Lots of parts in that question. Well, I definitely think it's possible he'll never know, because we know that we know the truth, and maybe that's all that matters. Maybe, and it's always been difficult to figure out how Jon would learn. I mean, maybe there's always Howland Reed, which is something the show apparently isn't going to touch on, but there are enough ways for Jon to learn, even though there's not a lot of them, that I think, it's a reasonable possibility. What do you guys think?
I think it's definitely possible that he'll never know. There's going to be some sort of slow reveal to him through dreams and things of that nature, but he may never know for sure. We may find out through other ways.
We're hearing that we have a little bit of a problem with audio only come out on one side. We're working on that. We are aware of it. Thank you for letting us know. We also have a super chat from... Where is it? I've lost it. We have a super chat from Allison Swan. They're pulling a lot of Ned/Cat parallels with Jon/Sansa during season 6 plus this season. Could there be anything to it, or are they just for cinematic purposes? I don't know if there's anything to it. I think cinematic purposes is reason enough. I think that's pretty strong. And, having Ned and Jon be like his father and Sansa be like her mother that's just quality writing. That's how it's supposed to work, right? So I think that I don't have any kind of deeper meaning to that. I think it's just quality. What do you guys think? Any other takes on that? You think there's more to it? You think maybe Sansa's going to directly channel Cat more, or Jon's going to become even more like Ned?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if it's in terms of Sansa kind of challenging Jon, if that's the implication, I don't think so. I think it's probably what you said. It's just a natural outgrowth of who those two young people are.
Yeah, I think they're just having these interactions that can't help but parallel it. Although, I mean, there's a lot of Johnson shippers, and I can't shake. They are just cousins. There's chemistry between them, I guess. You just know Jon and Dany's going to be the thing, but I don't think that's what her question was exactly, that it was romantic. But I do think that it is you just can't avoid the two of them having similarities to Ned and Catelyn's relationship when they're being the Lord and Lady of Winterfell. That's exactly what they were.
Yeah. Good points. Okay, let's see. Moving on, let's go to the crypt. The crypt scene is, as I said in the show only review, this was a surprise. I guess we all read a little too much into the statue of Lyanna because this scene was a lot more mundane than we thought. I do think it was clever. There's some interesting, clever undertone here that Littlefinger knew he needed to have a talk with Jon. It didn't go very well, but I thought it was clever for this scene to happen in the crypts, not just because it fooled us into thinking R plus L equals J stuff, though that is fairly clever, but because when Jon's in the crypt, standing next to his father's statue, which I believe we have a shot of coming up in a minute. Oh, no, we don't. We don't have a shot of that. Never mind. That was from our last episode. No sleep's getting me. No, but the fact that he came in to talk to Jon in the crypts speaks to just how clever Littlefinger is. This is a moment of emotional vulnerability for him. He's sitting in front of his father's statue. He's down in the crypts. That's a place for reflection and all that. So I think that may have been a carefully chosen moment by Littlefinger, which is pretty clever. What do you think, Lady Gwen? What's your take here?
Well, what I was struck about with that scene and his whole story about delivering Ned's bones, first of all, was what an arrogant, smug jerk he was. Remember Kat's reaction when he delivered those bones? She was hardly, grateful, and she wasn't very nice to Littlefinger in that moment. I think we need to remember that Jon and maybe Sansa are soon going to be with people who know the truth about Ned's death, and it wouldn't give very good odds on his head and neck keeping company once that truth gets out in the north, particularly. And I did want to just say that I think the statue might have had some significance after all, the Lyanna statue, that is, in that we're really not being allowed to leave Lyanna out of the frame when, as far as Jon is concerned. And as far as RLJ, like Yolkboy said, we might still get Baelish being the vehicle for that reveal in some way. He's been shown in the crypts so many times. I just feel like it has to be significant.
Real quick, comment from Iron Trone. Nice one, Iron Trone. He says, did anyone else catch Lady Dustin hiding behind Lyanna's statue or Ned's statue down there in the crypts? Nice one.
That's funny for what I'm about to say, actually, Iron Trone. I was just about to say that the scene was, somewhat evocative of a couple of crypt references in the books. Jon's dreams, where he feels the statues are telling him that he doesn't belong, in the Stark crypts, as he tells Littlefinger in this scene, and Theon's excursion to the crypts with Barbary Dustin, where his desperate longing to be a Stark is revealed, something which we feel strongly Littlefinger could be feeling, this I really want to be a Stark thing, given his love for Cat. She was taken by a Stark, and now his love for Sansa.
Did we go too far with this? We were, in the first place, we were assuming that because of this scene and this statue, that it makes sense that Littlefinger could reveal R plus L equals J to Jon. Now that it didn't happen, should we back off on that prediction? Should we think Bran's going to be the reveal, since Bran actually witnessed it, and Littlefinger was always just a thing that we guessed he might know. Maybe we should start backing off on things maybe he doesn't know.
I could see him not want it. Why would he want to tell Jon? I could see him telling Sansa, hey, your brother, the so-called King of the North, son of Ned Stark, guess what? He's not. He's a Targaryen.
And now that he's gone, yeah. Okay, so he's waiting for that opportunity. Mm-hmm. Good call. From Fabian Flowers, the Bastard of Greenshield. It's interesting that Jon tells Littlefinger that he doesn't belong in the crypts when he himself always felt that way. This is kind of along the lines of what Yukbo was saying. I think he sees himself as a true Stark now. What implications does this have for the revelation about his parentage? Will he keep it secret for political reasons, as we've just heard a Targaryen cannot be trusted? That was said right to his face by the previously mentioned Bronze Jan Royce. Good question. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if he finds. I never considered that he finds out in secret, and I just assumed that if he finds out, it's going to become known to everybody. But yeah, maybe it won't be. Maybe it's a secret Jon keeps to himself for some reason. I might have to marinate on that a little bit longer, because that's got some interesting implications. Does anyone else have a take on that? Yeah, I guess everybody else needs to think about it too.
I'm just trying to keep up with the live chat.
Yeah, Shay's doing a great job here. There's so many comments, and of course it's hard for her to always weigh in, but we appreciate that.
I would say that it's definitely an interesting thing to think about in terms of, how George likes to play with people's identities, doesn't he? In so many ways. And this could be another one, Jon finding out just as he's bedding in as a true Stark. And then he gets completely flipped. And, what will that do to his kind of self-concept? It's going to be interesting in the show.
And also, I want to point out that there's an interesting thing they're doing with Sansa in terms of the writing. They keep avoiding mentioning her to the characters who aren't around her. Like, she doesn't come up in Dany's council meetings at all. They mention Jon Snow, we mention, and then Arya hears about Jon winning the Battle of the Bastards for Hot Pie. Again, no mention of Sansa. So, to me, they're holding that back for a reason. There's like a meta reason for their writing to keep that back. So they want to save those reveals for later. They don't want Arya to find out in advance. They want her to be surprised, or they want Bran to be surprised, or something like that. I'm not sure, but it's suspicious that she keeps not being mentioned in these places. Do you guys have any takes on that, or is that just kind of a wait and see sort of thing?
No, it was definitely something I picked up on, especially in that with Hot Pie giving his little news. Just no mention of Sansa. Because we're all looking forward to seeing that reunion.
Yeah,
it's going to be impressive.
On the other side of things, Littlefinger did hear about Tyrion being hand to the queen, and he had a visible reaction to that. What do you think Littlefinger is most worried about with regards to Tyrion? Any thoughts on that? I wonder if it's just that Tyrion was a formidable enemy, or that he
and clearly doesn't trust Littlefinger, or isn't a pawn for him to play with.
Yeah.
Could he be worried that Tyrion might come to claim his wife?
Could he be worried that Tyrion will, be angry over framing him? Because he didn't seem to know that Olenna did that.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
He brought up Myrcella to the Sand Snakes, but he didn't mention the framing, so I'm guessing he's just not aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay, another question from Lord Brandon Brewer of Castle Blackroon. This is a good one. Seeing as Jon's following in Ned's footsteps and choking Littlefinger for a perceived slight against their family. Yes, that was a nice callback. Do you guys possibly see a Baelish Stark duel 2.0 after Littlefinger finally makes his move on claiming Sansa? Jon, of course, playing Brandon's role, but without any mercy this time around. Of course, then Littlefinger's head would decorate the walls of Winterfell, as it should. Well, yeah, I don't know about that. I think Littlefinger, as a teenager, was just... he was a dumb kid and just overwhelmed with emotion and thought the good guys always win. He had stories in his head. I don't think he's got those illusions anymore. In fact, I think he's the opposite of that guy. Even though he still has a lot of childish notions about his crush, I don't think he would go that far as to fight Jon Snow. But that would be cool. I like the idea, though.
He went far enough to, just agitate Jon Snow down in the crypts and tell him that he loved, Sansa's mother as he loved her, which was, I don't think that was, a calculated move exactly. I think his passions got the better of him right there.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but it's still a long jump from that to, fighting Jon.
Yeah.
Well, especially with Jon leaving now. Like, if Littlefinger's comeuppance is going to happen, it's a distinct chance that it comes during some other point, while he's gone.
Yeah,
so
I think in Jon's absence, I think it will be, well, again, I've said it before, it's going to be Sansa. Littlefinger's head will end up there.
I mean, that would be really a great way for her to be like, hey, I am of the North. He who passes the sentence should swing the sword. Or in her case, she who passes the sentence should swing the sword. That would be pretty sweet. And she might be like, well, I'm not going to chop your head off because that's hard to do. It's hard to sever a man's head, but maybe just a sticking him through the heart or something. Or pulling the thing that hangs him or whatever.
I hope it's Sansa who does it. I think she's going to have Arya do it. That's my thought. Yeah, just because I think Arya's going to use his own dagger on him or something like that.
What about Arya, his crackpot idea? What about Arya dressing up, faceless manning herself as Sansa, being Sansa for a minute, and then them messing with Littlefinger that way. She's like, hey, dress up as me, go talk to Littlefinger and, do stuff. I don't know.
Although there is the question, I think we've gotten it before, about whether Arya had to kill Walder Frey to take his face, and whether she would have to kill Sansa to take her face.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I wonder about that. That's a good point. Well, let's definitely not hope for that. No killing your sister. Ned already said that a long time ago. Don't use lethal on Sansa. Those instructions still stand.
She should have killed Ed Sheeran, then she can be a pop star.
Can you imagine them writing that into her for her? Like, we brought Ed Sheeran on because we know you love him, but we're gonna make you kill him.
He's the new Arya.
That's right. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran is in there.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, let's see. Do we have any other questions about this? I think not. I think we're about the halfway point, so...
One thing, Acre Frey points out that the waif had Arya's face when Arya had her own face.
Oh, good catch.
Whether the waif has, greater skills or the abilities of the House of Black and White has changed things, we don't know, but good point.
Cool, that is a good point. Good call there. Acre Frey is a.k.a. Lord James Saunders, the Lord of the Chicken Dance. Esteemed member of our chat group, is a longtime follower. Thanks for that. So let's do our mid-roll stuff here. We're doing well. We've got looks like we have over 500 people in the chat. That's awesome. Thank you very much for sticking with us. We've got plenty more left, but it is time to get ourselves...
That's 500 people in the live stream, not in the chat, thankfully, because if 500 people were in the live chat, I don't know how I would possibly read this.
That would be a bit difficult, wouldn't it? So we periodically give shout-outs to different patrons at different levels. Today, it's time to give a shout-out to our Ironborn captains. We've got a couple new ones in here. We've got Kathleen the Ruthless, captain of the Night Terror. We've got Black Matos Stormrider, captain of the Rusted Hinge. We've got Rebea, Lady of Waves, captain of the Iron Shadowcat. I believe we have one of your questions queued up as well. We have Tusk Shield, breaker, captain of Kraken's Fury. We have Oisin the Wanderer, captain of Naga's Living Flame. We have Sir Selvus Redblade of White Harbor, captain of Trident of the North. Already had a question answered. We have Lord Chuck Laws, captain of the Drummond Nightblood, destroyer of evil, and fellow ATLian. Hey, what's up, Chuck? Dean Crowseye of House Seaworth, captain of Silence. I guess we can call this Silence 2, Electric Boogaloo. This is what'll happen to Euron afterwards. Dean is going to snatch it from him. Mad Zach is captain of the Red Wake, and I've just noticed that I have a typo on the screen here. I'll have to fix that for you, Zach. It says Mad Zachem on our webpage. Anyway, great new names there. Thanks for supporting us. That is the Ironborn Captains is one of many levels we have out there. We've got a new level. Not just yesterday we announced the Beard Guard, the Beard Council, and the Hand of the Beard. We also now have a set of levels for the Queen. Our producer queen, Ashea, I'm titling you.
The Queen's High Council.
We have the Queen's High Council.
Not Small Council, High Council.
Yeah, High Council. And we also have the Hand of the Queen, and we have the Queen's Guard. So if you want to protect Ashea, join the Queen's Guard.
Jacket.
If you want to be her number one right-hand man or woman, you join up as the Hand of the Queen.
I'm only accepting women in my Queen's Guard. Imagine. That would be great, but no.
Okay, so if you can go to patreon.com and check the level that's right for you, the support level that's right for you, and we appreciate whatever you can do. So let's move on. Let's go on to the next location. We were talking a bit about Arya. Let's go ahead and do that fully now. Really nice to see Hot Pie. What did you guys think about this reunion?
I was totally surprised, honestly. I don't know why I wasn't exactly anticipating her interacting with Hot Pie right there.
Do you think maybe it'd be too fan servicey?
No, because it wasn't really that pleasant of an interaction, all things considered. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
She was kind of cold to him towards the end, although it was really great for him to give her this knowledge. Again, not mentioning Sansa. Arya has no clue. She's going to arrive there, and Jon Snow's going to be gone, and Sansa's going to be ruling, and maybe Bran's going to be there, too. It's going to be really different. But we got to see Hot Pie make a nice little meal for Arya.
Yep.
I really wanted what I think would have made it fan servicey, but what I wanted was for him to call it Winter Hell. I really wanted it.
That would have been awesome. What a great nod to the books that would have been. And, oh my, our friend Rudy pointed out that baking tip about the bread crust is 100% accurate. Browning that butter makes a huge difference.
Butter.
Yeah. So, good call. Good advice there, Hot Pie. So we kind of guessed that she was behind on her news. We kind of figured that was the way things were going. She didn't seem to be up on the current events. A little bit funny about that because if she was at the Twins, she had to hear about the Boltons killing Lady Walda, which is before the Battle of the Bastards, to be fair. But you'd think that the Freys would be kind of in on that news because of, you know, the Boltons really screwed them over, even though they're all dead now, so there's no one to take revenge on. But, you know, that's the show for you. They sometimes skip over stuff like that. There's probably a way to make that work. I couldn't come up with one, though. What about you guys? Anything to explain that away, or should we just say, never mind?
News hadn't filtered. So, you know, maybe Ramsay had kept the news so quiet that if they find out Walt is dead, they probably just attributed it to Jon Snow, and, you know. The way these things happen in Song of Ice and Fire all the time, the wrong people get blamed for things.
I liked that people mentioned that while Arya was Walder Frey, she could have just, you know, talked to the maester there.
Yeah, there's got to be a maester there, right?
Like, tell me what's happening.
I was like, give me some news. Yeah.
Walder's memory's really going. We just went over the letters yesterday.
Wearing his face also gave her his ability to retain facts, apparently. Yeah, so that was what it was. She learned all those things as Walder, but when she took the face off, she forgot them all. So, Yuck Boy, you had some takes here as well.
Yeah, first of all, it was good to see that Hot Pie can hold down a job. That was my first tweet, actually.
Yeah, I liked it. That was your Owens tweet for him to be able to hold down a job, and it cracked me up out loud in the moment. And then we talked about it when I was on Game of Owens. We were like, that was the best tweet of the week.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Shout out to Game of Owens, yeah. And last week I remember saying, you know, Arya was at this crossroads psychologically. And here we are at the inn at the crossroads, you know, this great symbol of, you know, people making decisions where, you know, Kat took Tyrion, you know, on that fateful day. And Arya ends up going north. Wow. And we've got Hot Pie and Ed Sheeran's posse to thank. So thanks for that. You want to see it.
I hear everybody was hating on Ed Sheeran, and look at all the good he's doing.
Someone said chicken plus pie.
Oh, that is a both good and awful pun.
Yeah, I had to say it out loud.
Well played, well played.
Zoilo.
I see some people mentioning, a couple times people are asking about my shirt. This is indeed a Tony House Teflon shirt, which he gave me personally at dinner at Con of Thrones. That's right. I'm happy to wear this shirt. And if you missed it, Ashea is wearing a Get Down Brothers jacket, a custom Get Down Brothers jacket with her name right there. As you can see, well, her hair's covering it up, but it comes in and out depending on where the hair is. There it is.
Spin around?
See if you can spin around without wrecking our live stream here. Look at that. Move your hair. Yeah, look at that. Get Down Brothers. How cool is that?
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways.
That's her new house.
I don't think I've ever done that on camera before. Spun my chair around.
That was a live stunt you just pulled off.
I was. I'm going to be credited as stunt coordinator in this episode. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but on YouTube, we always credit Radio Westeros as the Radio Westeros Dancers.
The Radio Westeros Dancers.
It kills me some. I love it.
So now we have choreography to go with the dancing. So, Lady Gwen, you
haven't told anyone that it's lap dancing, have you?
All right.
Yeah, Lady Gwen, tell us what you thought of this scene.
Once
we stop laughing.
I'm going all poignant now. I think Arya and Hot Pie together, like you guys were saying, she was very cold to him, and he was trying his hardest. But there was this moment that came when she tried to pay, and he said to her, "Friends don't pay." And I couldn't help but thinking, when was the last time Arya had a friend? You know, she's
Micah. That's it, I think.
This has been a long journey for her.
How much do you count Gendry or Hot Pie or
since them, really, since she left that group of people. So it's been years, or however years, and timeline is difficult, of course. It's been a very long journey for her, and I think that remembering what it's like to have a friend is part of that re-entry into society, kind of her rehumanization.
Someone said the waif.
The waif was her friend. Yeah. Lady Crane sort of helped her out a little bit there.
That was the one little glimmer of human kindness that she's had
Yeah.
in, literally a very, very long time.
Since she's returned to Westeros, it's like an escalating humanization. First, she meets some soldiers that she thinks she should kill, and turns out they're good, decent people. Then she meets Hot Pie, who's an actual friend, and expresses positivity towards her. And then, well, let's do it. Let's talk about Nymeria. And that's a reminder of, she hears about family, and then she's reminded of family. And this is, whoa, that wolf is huge. I know I said it already, but damn. Arya's strong bond with Nymeria makes this plot potentially very different in the books, though, right? This is... it's hard to predict how different it'll be in the books, but she's been having all these wolf dreams throughout the series, and that seems like it's going to me, that says this will be very different.
Yeah, I mean, the books doesn't have to deal with the budget.
Yeah, you just write pack of wolves, and, you can't just write that into a show. That's so much money. What do you think there, Lady Gwen, what do you think the point of this scene was?
Well, it was Arya letting go of her younger self, and of Nymeria, obviously. Nymeria's moved on and formed her own family, really. And Arya is about to reunite with her own pack. Nymeria probably wouldn't have a place there. So, you get this callback to, as they noted in after the episode, to the Arya's words to Ned, that scene from season 1, where she said, that's not me. And so she says, that's not you, to Nymeria, recognizing that she's kind of made her own place in the world now. I found that to be another really poignant moment. Two, kind of back-to-back Arya tearjerkers in a row. I think this was a very conscious goodbye, and I don't think we'll see those two together again.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Yeah, I agree that was a goodbye, that we won't see Nymeria with Arya again. I know a lot of people are thinking about it. I've heard differing opinions, but I really thought that was framed as a goodbye, full stop. And the scene kind of harks back to Ned telling Arya, bringing the books into it, when the snow falls and the white winds blow, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. And now Nymeria's found a pack. And like Lady Gwyn said, if she's to survive the winter, Arya's got to find her pack. So, yeah, that's the TV show. As you said, the books will be very different because they seem to be part of the plot, this huge wolf pack. And they're getting increasingly mentioned. I think in the Winds of Winter, we're going to see some kind of devastating scene with that wolf pack.
It seems that's one of the largest main divergences is the wolves. A lot of it's understandable.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly. I think that we're going to see Nymeria again. I don't think it's going to be this season, most likely, but I really think... But I really think that next season, she's going to come in and save the day. I think, in all likelihood, she is going to keep some sort of radius around Arya while doing her own thing. But Arya's going to go north, and Nymeria is going to be somewhat north as well, unbeknownst to both her and the audience. But that she'll save the day eventually, some crucial moment, but it'll save their budget, until that will happen. But what I would love to see, but... we all know we won't get it. It's very unlikely. I'd love to see is that until that happens, until Nymeria comes to rescue some situation, that we do see wolf dreams. I would love to see Arya having wolf dreams now that she's reuniting herself with her Stark roots back in Winterfell. I think that's the time that she could have these dreams come back up, but I really doubt it's going to happen.
Right on. Good takes, everybody. I sort of think we might see her again. I see both the arguments here, and I weighed in pretty thoroughly in show only. And you guys have covered this. I won't go any farther with that. We also have a couple questions related. Again, if you have a burning question that you want answered that you didn't have time to get into front, I highly recommend Super Chat for just a couple of bucks or more. You can make sure your chat comment stays very visible for a while. We can all see it and gets that question in front. Rebea, Lady of Waves, Captain of the Iron Shadowcat. After the brief reunion with Arya and Nymeria, do you think that Arya's warging abilities will awaken for the show? Personally, I would be surprised to see Nymeria again unless we hear of news of a wolf pack terrorizing the Riverlands. Yeah, I don't think so. I think with all of our predictions, even Ashea, who's predicting that we'll see Nymeria again, even you probably don't think there's going to be much of the warg aspect of that, right?
I think that's a pipe dream on my part that we'll actually see that. Although, if there were any time for that, I think it would be now that she's back in the North and in Winterfell and that Nymeria has been reintroduced. But, and I guess technically they don't need to use CGI or film Nymeria if it's all from Nymeria's perspective, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so maybe it's possible, but I would say I think it's like a 5-10% chance that we could get that.
The one thing that gives me a little bit of optimism is that they talk about how season 8 is they're considering like feature length episodes with feature, maybe movie sized budgets. If they have a greatly expanded budget, that we should at least, I think that would be a fair reason to have a little more optimism about Wolves coming back. They may not have even decided yet whether they're going to have more Nymeria. True. So, and apparently there was a ghost scene shot,
Can I
but
share
that was
this
cut.
comment?
Yes.
From Stephanie Vale. I'd be okay with $100 million a season being spent on nothing but Nymeria and Ghost riding dragons.
Whoa! Yes, make that movie/TV show.
Firewolves.
Firewolves. There was an '80s show called Airwolf. This is reminds me of that. Instead of a helicopter, just make it a dragon. Yeah, fantasy Airwolf. Lady Ardros asks, do you think the Arya Nymeria reunion in the books will go the same way as in the show? Or will the Stark to Wolf connection, which the show has bypassed for all but Bran, prove too strong for Nymeria to walk away from? Arya has the most wolf dreams of all of them in the books, so that connection seems to have endured their separation. First of all, good point about Arya having the most wolf dreams. That's a big part of why we think this is going to go very different in the books than the show. So, yeah, I think it will, but I say no. It will not go, it'll be very different. I think Arya's reunion in the books will be very different. I think that the connection will be stronger and more lasting because it's been maintained this whole time with her dreams. And that I don't even know that Nymeria will not recognize her. I think Nymeria, it's possible Nymeria's gonna be like, oh, there you are. Yeah, I know you. You've been in my head this whole time. So, yeah, I think it's hard to predict because it's going to be so different, and Arya's not even in Westeros yet in the book, so got a long way to go for that. Now, this is a good time to point out because of how hard it is to keep track of show and book canon. For example, a lot of people, myself included, thought that Jorah got forgiven by Gior in the show, but that's book only. I also misremembered the line about "that's not me." I remembered the book version of that line. That's not me, that's Sansa. In the show, she just says, that's not me. So there's a subtle difference, but it's a meaningful difference. And to keep track of these things, I recommend getting the books on audio if you haven't, because it's a great way to keep up with what's happening, to remind yourself of keeping the canon straight without sitting down to having to read and put a whole lot of hours into it. Obviously, if you can do that, if you have time to read, that's better. But if you're rushing around, if you have errands to run, get the books on audio. Go to historyofwesteros.com. Use the Audible trial. You can get 2 books for free without paying anything. That's a pretty good deal, at least to see if you like it, at least to see if that works for you. And it's hard to beat that deal. 2 free audiobooks for just signing up, and then if you want to cancel the trial before you pay, then you can. And of course, you'll be supporting History of Westeros at the same time. So, with that little spiel, it's time to move on. Let us go to King's Landing. Looks like we apparently... Anyway, it looks like we got that fixed. Okay.
Not your lane, Aziz.
Let you handle that. All right. Okay, so let's go to King's Landing. This is where there was a lot happening in King's Landing. First of all, we can talk about Cersei's speech. I thought it was well done, also predictable. Tyrion predicted it, and it went a lot like how he said it would. But it was still good. Like, the acting was good. And Lady Gwen, give us your opening take on this. The shot of her giving the speech to a sort of empty-ish room. It wasn't exactly a full room, right?
Yeah. I mean, the speech was good. It was well delivered, and we kind of knew the things that she was going to say. But I really found the whole council to be kind of sad in a pathetic way. There was so few people in that room. And the dark kind of ominous lighting that we have now, and in spite of Cersei's best scare tactics, which she delivered in her speech, and Jaime's bribery of Randall Tarley, it's really hard to see how this group is going to stand against Dany's army and her dragons, or even remain loyal to the Lannisters in any way once the chips really start to fall. One thing that struck me is, let's not forget, when Cersei's talking about these, savages coming into Westeros, she's kind of imported her own marauders in the Ironborn, who, even though they're Westerosi, a lot of the, the Southerners for sure, I'd say most of the mainland Westerosi, see them as savages and marauders. So
that's Jaime's first thing he said when Cersei said that she's bringing them over. That Jaime's like, but the Ironborn?
Yeah.
Well,
no one really wants them around, so I don't think that she's going to win herself any points by, in contrast to Dany. It's
yeah, at the time they both had Ironborn, so it looks like that was kind of a wash, but now now it's pretty much all Cersei that has the Ironborn, and Dany doesn't have many of them left at all, but we'll get to that. So yeah, this is something that's important about all this. Cersei is different than book Cersei by a lot. There's so many things that are similar that it's easy to lose track of this, but show Cersei is far more capable, far more intelligent, far less emotional. Not that she isn't any of those things, but it's toned down in a lot of ways. And this is important to remember because the parallel plot line here in the book is young Griff's plot. Aegon the Thick's plot is who we expect to be the one holding King's Landing at this parallel point in the story in the book. So in order to make Cersei that kind of formidable ally or opponent, she has to be better than book Cersei, because book Cersei's not up to this task. And I think that's pretty good, and they've done that, and they've made Cersei a lot more powerful. One of the ways they've done this is to make Cersei's people around her more powerful too. Jaime himself, starting with this recruitment of Randall Tarley, which is a great scene. I really liked this. A lot of subtext, a lot of undertones, and it's a big slam dunk for the Friends in the Reach theory, which is that the Blackfire, some of the Reach people, like Tarley in particular, is going to flip to Fagon and betray the Tyrells. We have a super chat coming in from Stephen Hill. Could that fleet that Stannis had Jon promised to return come in useful about now? He seemed quite adamant about that. Yeah, it might be. We wonder what happened to that fleet. I really don't know if that's just... They didn't really address what happened to those ships, but yeah, they could use those pretty badly right about now. I wonder if they're sitting there at Eastwatch, because Stannis... I don't know what else Stannis would have done with them. They might be at Eastwatch. Maybe we'll hear about that. I got a feeling the show is just going to try to pretend like we forgot about them, but...
Maybe they magically moved to White Harbor.
Hey, there we go. Yeah. That'd be cool. I'd be down for that. Anyway, so this Tarley recruitment scene, though. Now, the thing in the Kevin epilogue chapter, Tarley is saying all sorts of suspicious things about saying, oh, we don't need to worry about the Golden Company. Oh, this young Griff Aegon guy, he's just fake. We don't need to worry about him. They're just adventurers. And that and many other factors led people to believe that he's actually going to flip to Fagon, which this plot in the show is pretty much proof, because I really don't think that the showrunners just came up with that on their own. It would be too much of a coincidence for them to figure this out by themselves and just happen to do the same thing. So I think this is a very strong confirmation of that. Maybe not 100% confirmed, but pretty strong. I really like the interaction between Randall and Jaime. He first tries to kind of bribe him with words, but Randall's not having it. But when he brings up the foreign army and touches on Randall's own honor, Randall responds with, he's like, hey, I'm an honorable guy, this is an honorable house. And he's like, oh, so it's honorable to support the foreign savages? It's honorable to forget your oath to the king? And that's so cool because he's bringing up the conflicting oaths thing, right? Which is, Jaime's the perfect man to speak to conflicting oaths, is he not? Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really cool. What do you guys think about this scene beyond that? Did you have any thoughts on this sort of bribery of Randall, bringing him in via the offering him Warden of the South position?
Well, my thought, and this plays into this sort of Friends in the Reach theory, and it plays into one of the questions that we have coming up, has to do with Randall Tarley's resentment of House Tyrell, and Jaime does touch on the reasons why Tarly might have a little bit of resentment against the Tyrells when he mentions his victory over Robert Baratheon during Robert's Rebellion. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
Also, there's this whole notion of well, actually, let me just skip ahead to this question. We have a question from Sarvesh C. Highgarden. How long have the Tarleys been bannermen to the Tyrells? Since the Tyrells were upjumped to replace the Gardeners by Aegon, that's Aegon the Conqueror, is there any history or resentment between House Tarly and House Tyrell? Well, yeah, there's definitely some general resentment about the Tyrells being upjumped because they were stewards of Highgarden, and all of a sudden they went from stewards of Highgarden to Lords of the Reach. That's kind of like House Cassel being made Lords of the North after the Starks were extinguished. That's kind of the rough equivalent. So you can see why that would be like, what? To some people, especially, I mean, given a guy like Randall Tarly, very proud, very all about the heritage, all about the, he hated wildlings, like he was vicious against wildlings there, which sells Jaime's argument about.
Yeah, I mean, he's a huge xenophobe, for sure.
Huge xenophobe, yeah, it works so well. And that's just, I mean, that fits really well. So I like, they really connected the dots well in this scene. A lot of times they just leave a few things out and we're left to kind of explain it away. But I didn't see any holes, and I saw a lot of good subtlety. So I give this scene a really high grade. We have another related question that touches on some of the other undertones and subtleties of what's happening in this situation. Anthony Gonzalez. Shouldn't Olenna have other lords in the Reach and other agents/spies in the Reach that could tell her Randall and his heir went to meet with Cersei? I mean, we're already at a point where battle lines have been drawn. The Tyrells sent their fleet to Slaver's Bay to get Dany. We know where they side. They know Cersei killed the Lord of the Reach and his heir, so Randall going to Cersei after she killed him should be telling. And Olenna has seen it all, as she herself says. She should know, for example, Robert had to fight other Stormlanders before fighting Targaryens during the rebellion. Yes, Randall is known for being honorable, but Cersei doing what she did is a massive middle finger to the Reach. I just don't see why Olenna or her bannermen would totally trust Randall. Okay, you sort of... A good part of that point is that what Cersei just did is a massive middle finger to the Reach, and Jaime even points that out. Jaime says, yeah, I know you don't like my sister, but you have to choose a side. Who do you like, who do you hate more? Do you hate my sister more, or do you hate Dothraki and eunuchs and foreign conquerors? It's a tough call, but it's an easy call, is kind of what he's saying. And so that argument goes both ways. Yes, what Cersei did is a massive middle finger to the Reach, but what Olenna is doing is a massive middle finger to the Reach, too.
Yeah,
she's shaming all of them.
That said, I think that Olenna needs to double down on, just think about how many Reach men and women were in that sept for that, trial. A lot, especially because the Tyrells and Hightowers and all of them, the Red Wines, would be married into these houses. So I think there's a lot of family ties. Anyone in the Reach should have lost someone that they're related to in some way in that conflagration, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we're not seeing Olenna's political strategy here. We're not seeing her writing letters to people. I would like to see that, but I think she is. I'm assuming that she is communicating with different lords and ladies.
We may see, I'm guessing there may not be a ton of time for it, but she may find out, really soon about what just happened, that Randall went to go meet with Cersei, and then she might start to wonder. But Randall Tarly accurately paints himself as a loyalist, a guy who's not easy to corrupt, and so maybe Olenna's just banking a little too heavily on that. He points out that he's known Olenna from his whole life, and so the counter is that she's known him his whole life, and he has always been trustworthy. He's always been a loyalist, and he said, "Yeah, when my queen calls, I come." That's his attitude. That's always been his attitude. He's been consistent. So maybe she's trusting in that a little too much. She may be too blinded by revenge. I can see why she should have spies pointing these things out, but this is maybe just another show logistical overlook thing. Or it could just be that she's just so blinded by her revenge, I mean, she has definitely changed. Mm-hmm. So it could be that. Okay. Let's see. So do you guys have any thoughts on how this might play out? I wonder if it's going to be really soon. I wonder if Olenna's just going to be taken out, or if they're going to attack Highgarden, or... Yeah, it's really...
Okay, what do you guys think? Radio Westeros, do you think Olenna's dying this season? Are you guys yeses? Nos? I don't know.
Put her in the word of the week, maybe?
Man, that is tricky. That's really tricky. Can I sit on the fence, please? Can I just put my
I'll
butt on
sit
this
there.
fence?
I'll sit there with you. I'll say I don't
join
want
you.
her to die. I really don't.
So I'll sit on that fence.
Another thing that has a lot of bearing here is that this situation has got to be a lot different in the books. Except that I do think there will be. We're talking about how it seems like a slam dunk that there will be a revolt against the Tyrells. But it's just going to be so much messier. First of all, there's so many more Tyrells in the books, and they have Brightwater Keep as well. Maybe assuming Garland Tyrell grabs it from the Florence and Highgarden, so they don't just have one seat and one army and one heir who's dead.
They're married into the Hightowers and a bunch of other families, but the Hightowers most specifically that are pretty relevant to things.
So basically, they kind of had with one line of dialogue. They kind of spun it. They're like, the other lords of the Reach will follow your lead. That's how they're addressing that here. So whatever Tarly does, they'll do. That's basically what they've sold us. In the books, no chance it will be that simple. There will be, a big split in the Reach. Some will side with Fagon. Some will stay loyal. Some might go to Dany. I think it's going to be a big bloody mess. And it's something for George to handle, not David and Dan. To be fair, it would be hard to pull all that off in the show. You could do that would take like a whole season to handle all the things that they could handle in this bit. So let's move on to Randall's important question, which was, how are you going to deal with the dragons? And Qyburn's all, I got this handled, bro. Don't worry. Qyburn is so much more formidable in the show, it seems. Lady Gwen, what do you think about this? Awesome shot, huh? Those skulls and everything?
Oh, it's definitely very cool. And one thing I thought of, since we're getting a lot of these Cersei and kind of Tyrion dynamics, Cersei's story about Robert moving those skulls down into the cellars is actually taken pretty much directly from a Tyrion point of view in the Game of Thrones, where he's remembering seeing those dragon skulls. And I think Yolkboy has the quote, but incidentally, before he reads that, the fact that she also says that Robert used to bring his whores down there is actually, I'm pretty sure, is just a reference to Tyrion in the books, who brings Shay down there. I don't think we see any other whores in the books down in the dragon skulls.
No,
Okay, so
yeah.
I'll read the
this.
quote from the Tyrion POV. There were 19 skulls. The oldest was more than 3,000 years old. The youngest, a mere century and a half. The most recent were also the smallest, a matched pair no bigger than a mastiff's skull, and oddly misshapen, all that remained of the last two hatchlings born on Dragonstone. They were the last of the Targaryen dragons, perhaps the last dragons anywhere, and they had not lived very long. From there, the skulls ranged upward in size to the three great monsters of song and story, the dragons that Aegon Targaryen and his sisters had unleashed on the Seven Kingdoms of old. The singers had given them the names of gods, Balerion, Meraxes, and Vhagar.
Yeah, such a good one. This is one of the things, not only was this scene beautiful and awe-inspiring, but it was filled with history, so we're all about that. Let's take a look at the weapon itself first. We have Shay's going to pull that up for us. This is usually referred to as a scorpion, I believe. Now, what's cool is this is also straight from A Song of Ice and Fire history. The question here from Sarvesh is Qyburn's scorpion a nod to the scorpion used to kill Meraxes at Hellholt? It's kind of ironic that an Uller, Illyria Sant, is headed to King's Landing now. Mm-hmm. Cool catch.
Of course, the Ullers hold Hellholt.
Yes, the Ullers, yeah, that's right. Hellholt's their castle, so that's where Meraxes was killed. Well, you and I are on the same page here, Sarvesh. When I published at 7 o'clock this morning our show-only review, we included images, because we can do that on our podcast now. If you download the Acast player, you get to see the images that we associate with the podcast. It's pretty cool to be able to see images on an audio-only podcast. I wrote a caption. I wrote, this sort of thing is what killed Meraxes. So, yeah, I think we're definitely on the same page, and I think it's 100% accurate. And I think that's really cool. And it's also true that these are a deadly weapon in terms of book canon against dragons. And you can see why. That's a big old metal bolt that has a lot of force behind it. Imagine like a whole lot of those things, right? Like a battery of them, It could really you could see it taking down a dragon. But there's some more history here. It's not the only dragon probably taken down by such a weapon. At the Battle of the Gullet, which happened during the Dance of the Dragons, Jacaerys, Prince of the Iron Throne, who was Rhaenyra's son, was killed riding his dragon Vermax. Vermax, there are many tales told about what brought Vermax down. One of those versions of that tale is a bolt like this. Also, Jacaerys' younger brother, Aegon, who was at the time called Aegon the Younger, his dragon Stormcloud was killed during this engagement. Killed largely by bolts and scorpion arrows, a lot like this one. That Aegon the Younger became Aegon the Third in the long run, aka Aegon the Third, the Dragonbane, whose tiny skull we see in this image here. Well, that's not his skull. Yeah. It was the skull of the last dragon that died during his reign. He died in 157. This dragon died in 153. And that is a wonderful segue through all this. Aegon the Third's connection to all this is really cool. So you can see why I just love the scene so much, because there's so much history in it. Now, this is a good time to mention George's recent announcement about Fire and Blood. Fire and Blood is a basically another history book that's kind of maybe
Gurmillion.
Yeah, like the Silmarillion, but the Gurmarillion. So it's an in-world history book. It's basically, most of it is going to be stuff about Targaryen history that didn't make it into the world of Ice and Fire. Most of it was written already. George isn't putting a ton of time into this. I'm sure it's not just a snap and he's done.
Yeah, it was mostly stuff about the Targaryens that got cut from World of Ice and Fire,
Yeah,
as I know because I asked him myself. I said, "Where's that Dornish material and the Essos material?" And he said, "No, it was just Targaryen stuff that got cut. We got all that good Essos material."
And the thing about this book, too, is that Fire and Blood, he's expanded it. Not only, the biggest news on it is that it's, instead of, he originally said it won't come out till after all these Song of Ice and Fire books are done. Now it might come out as soon as next year, and it's being divided into two books. Fire and Blood Part 1, Fire and Blood Part 2. And Fire and Blood Part 1 is split at the point of Aegon III's regency ending. So it fits here beautifully with this scene.
I'm telling you, I'm disappointed about us getting Fire and Blood before A Song of Ice and Fire finishes. Not for the reasons I think most people are, and that they want the story to be finished, but because I want him to be able to go all out with Fire and Blood. And I just don't think he'll be able to.
Maybe there'll be more of it in the second book.
I want like an actual huge compendium with everything in it. Yeah. That's what I want.
So, getting back to the scene itself, that's really cool. I can't wait for Fire and Blood, by the way. And there's also an excerpt from it is coming out at the end of the year called Sons of the Dragon, and that's going to contain the stories of Aenys and Maegor, and we will certainly be covering the heck out of that.
Radio Westeros has some Sons of the Dragon stuff, right?
Yes, indeed. In our
fourth episode, I believe. If you want to hear some Sons of the Dragon, then check out Radio Westeros episode 4. It was a report from a Worldcon a few years ago when he read a large excerpt from that story.
Very true. Good job, guys. Yeah, you guys were on point there, capturing that for us. So the question I asked earlier, is Qyburn going to be this formidable in the books? Maybe not, because Cersei won't be as formidable. But do you guys have any other takes? What do you think about Qyburn? I know you're a Qyburn fan, Matt, or Yolkboy rather. What do you have to say about this?
Oh, well, in the TV show, at least, I think that you need Qyburn at the wall.
Yeah.
He's made Robert strong. He's supplied the ammunition to blow up an entire sept. And now he seemingly invented this scorpion device. He is the MVP on military tactics.
Yes,
they need him at the wall. He'd probably take the others out, the White Walkers out, in a few hours, I think.
Wildfire.
Yeah, the wildfire thing. Yeah, wildfire against whites seems like that should be tried.
Someone should think of that.
It's not like there's a bunch of trees around to catch fire and burn the whole countryside, but maybe that's worthwhile. A couple of questions about this scene. We have a question from David Stead and others. A lot of people are asking about this. Is this foreshadowing a dragon's death? And if so, does that kind of take care of the dragon rider issue a little bit by maybe making it so that there's only 2 dragons to ride, especially if one is killed before it gets a rider?
Especially if the show doesn't want to dive into either young Griff or Tyrion or anyone else getting a dragon, or the horn, or there's all these elements that that give us our potential third head of the dragon, but the show hasn't really laid the groundwork for any of those.
Yeah, that's a good point. What do you guys think? Any thoughts on potential dragon deaths?
I do think we'll see a dragon death.
I don't see the point of introducing this scorpion thing if it's just going to fire into thin air. I think that it would give some balance to, Dany having this huge army, and then she's got to take the others. And isn't it more of a story if she's depleted and she's in a more of a desperate state when she actually needs to face the real enemy? Isn't that more of a the George R. R. Martin style?
She'll certainly feel less invincible. If one dragon gets killed, she'll be less likely to commit the other two, I would imagine.
Where does that put us with people's theories about an ice dragon this season?
It could be a white dragon.
a white dragon. Because just the idea that if it's killed down south in some sort of field of fire, Lannister, fight, I don't know how that dragon gets brought back to life as a white in particular. Whereas if it dies up north, I could see it being brought back, but I don't really see this scorpion being used up there. So I don't know if they're at odds or if it's going to get pared down really until only Daenerys actually has a dragon. I don't know.
Elizabeth Means Lightbringer says, who else is fully outraged at that treatment of Valyrian skull? Yeah, seriously, that is an outrage. I totally agree. Lord James Saunders, Lord of the Chicken Dance, suggests maybe that Dany's dragons, pulling up page from history here, will die in order of their respective counterparts from Aegon's conquest. Maybe, the equivalent of Meraxes goes first, and the equivalent of Vhagar, and then, maybe Balerion / Drogon dies later or lives. I could see that, yeah. By the way, going back to that quote, one of that Yolkboy read, one of the dragon skulls is 3,000 years old, it says. Like, whoa. That means they brought the skull with them before the Doom. And, put it in the throne room when they conquered, made the Iron Throne, and just, yeah. Definitely don't destroy that skull. 3,000 years old. Please, keep that.
I'm skeptic. I don't think it's 3,000 years old.
By the way, slight difference in book to show canon here. The dragon bones in the show are white. In the books, they are black. Dragonbone is black
great
in the
point.
In the books.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about there is Qyburn doesn't have dragon hide, doesn't have dragon scales to practice on. And so I'm wondering if how much he took that into account, how strong the hide is compared to the bone of a skull that's been sitting there for hundreds of years, you know what I mean?
That's a good point. They can still wreak havoc on their wings, though.
Their wings. And, of course, a good placed eye shot or anything like that.
That is what killed Meraxes,
I think the hide will cause them issues.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. And apparently, according to book canon, the older the dragon, the tougher the hide scales. So, in this case, at least, none of the dragons are that old, so that at least kind of would fit. All right, we should move on to the Citadel. Let's do that. We have the Citadel and the sea battle to cover still, and we're getting close to 2 hours already, so let's keep moving. Citadel is so disgusting. I don't understand how they made it so much more gross than just about anywhere else.
Everyone keeps making fun of me for saying I want to live at the Citadel now, because it's all just gross.
It's worse than the Dreadfort, man. But there was a little nod to Pylos there. Archmaester Pylos' Book of Diseases. Maester Pylos on Dragonstone is the one who replaces Cresson. So that's sort of on point there.
There's just been a lot of people with that name that have been maesters.
Pylos is
your name's name. That when you're born, you're like, oh, I guess he's a maester.
So we have a cool image here, this Book of Lannister Lineage. At first, this book just kind of flew by. I didn't think this mattered. I was like, it's just a cool little shot. It's a little Easter egg for people. But two people brought a question up here. We have our good friend Rudolph, Lord Baltimore of House Edwards.
Also sworn to the Get Down.
That's true. And Hayma Helminth, Captain of the Whispering Children. Both are wondering about this book and whether there's anything to do with Lannister lineage regarding this book. Any sort of suspicions we should have about some Tyrion Targaryen action. Maybe that's the point of this book being pulled out. I didn't have any theories on it until someone brought that up.
Rock.
Maybe something about Casterly Rock, about getting inside it.
The fact that they're going to take Casterly Rock, but it's related to that. I don't know.
That's interesting. It seems like Grey Worm's already on his way there.
I don't think it'll be relevant. Okay. That's just what it made me think of.
Maybe
I don't think any of this information is going to be relevant to anything in the future. I think it was just that's one of the books that Ebros was pulling out because he's doing a study of the wars, so he needed to have his histories of House Lannister a crucial part of these wars of the Five Kings. He needed that book out.
Okay.
I would have expected him to also be pulling out books on Tyrell and Baratheon and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so book naming. This was cool. It was a nice little in-world nod to their in-world historians and
with
their
that
own
one awful
capturing of
name
history.
that they have. That the one that wrote this book, The History of House Lannister, it's like Kavath Valale. It's like this weird fantasy name. You can almost see it down there. It's like got an apostrophe in it. It's not a Westerosi name at all. It's pretty weird.
It wasn't Kafifi, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought there's different possibilities here. Maybe I felt like this was the name that's going to come out of this is War of the Five Kings, because it's specifically referring to the wars that follow Robert's death. But there's also the possibility that he's talking about the Song of Ice and Fire. Certainly, a lot of people predict the end of the series will be either Bran, having the final chapter, or Sam. Those are the two most popular theories. And if it's Sam, it's him sitting down to write everything that happened, his history of it, and he could call it a Song of Ice and Fire. So that both those things work as far as theories.
That's why he
for
was
the
able to
future.
write the fat pink mask scene so vividly, in particular.
But of course, there's this whole idea of descriptive chapter titles and book titles and all that. Reminds us, our friend Azad from Twitter mentioned that this reminded him of the descriptive chapter titles that George added for the later books, which is a cool and a cool catch. George himself has weighed in on this. He was asked about those chapters, and he said that there's a method to his madness with regards to those namings, but he won't elaborate on that. So, yeah, I don't know. But that's
they
a cool
generally
catch.
do have significance, to what the character's going through and to their actual identity there. And just, this character is not going to have their name listed. Sometimes I think it's just to keep the secret going, obviously, as well.
It might be, yeah.
But yeah, I loved Hot Pie referring to the Battle of the Bastards.
Right? That was really cool having the in-world name be that. Yeah, I love that. And it fits because everyone's got colorful names for each other. In Song of Ice and Fire, around Westeros, everyone's got a nickname. So having battles with nicknames is right in line with that. Lady Gwen, tell us what you think about Sam and Jorah and Grayscale.
Well, this is a meeting I'd really love to see on page, since Jorah's dying words to Sam were to ask him to tell Jorah to take the black, and I would love to see that happen. And you referenced, of course, I was victim of the same sort of confusion. I couldn't remember. I had to go really dig deep to figure out if that had happened in the TV show or if I was deluding myself. So
book only.
No, of course it didn't. No, book only. So I'll keep that wish for the books, but on screen, I kind of wish I hadn't seen this.
Yeah, it was so gross.
It was so gross. And that cut to the, after the cut from the cut to the soup was worse than the poop soup loop from last week. I don't know.
Yeah, I tell you.
Pie is honor. Oh, good one, Gregor the Toasty.
I was looking at that picture of the pie, putting it for our show only episode yesterday, and I was so conflicted because I kept thinking of the grayscale thing, and then I would look at the crust and kind of forget what I was being reminded of. I just went back and forth. It was this weird roller coaster of emotion where I was like, this pie looks really good, but what am I thinking about? Why am I thinking of this pie this way? I don't know. I'm not going to be able to eat a pie for a while, at least not a cream pie.
The puns are blowing up in the chat room right now.
Yeah.
Someone's all about the crow's pie. We got the words of Pie Garden as pie is honor.
I liked the dread tort.
The Dread Tort.
The Dread Tort.
Bernadette.
Very fitting. Very fitting with the virtual flaying.
Oh, you all are right up my alley with these jokes.
There's so many.
Okay, so as far as the grayscale plot itself, though, comparing this to the books is a little tricky because it's a totally different character with grayscale, and Connington is not a beloved character. Not that George necessarily cares who we love and don't as far as who he's going to kill, but it does seem like this is a distillation of what's going to happen in the books. It might just it's starting to feel like there's not going to be any sort of grayscale outbreak in the show. It's just going to be, this is all about Sam, who was Jon's right-hand man, and Jorah, who is Daenerys' very trusted advisor at this point. this is a connection point for Jon and Daenerys.
I think it's a connection point for them, but I also think it's showing us the importance of dragonglass even more.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Do you guys think there's any chance that there will be some sort of issue with supply? If we need, I mean, I'm currently suggesting that there won't be a grayscale outbreak in Westeros in the show. I think there will be in the books. If I'm wrong and there is some sort of outbreak in the show, like Sam gets it or something, then they could create
a grayscale pie.
Then we'd have the grayscale pie thing. Then we could have this sort of resource scarcity. They really need grayscale. They really need obsidian in the north, and they really need it to fight grayscale. So that would be interesting. But I don't know if they have time for that. But in the show, in the book they could do that. It seems like Connington is sort of heralding a grayscale outbreak of some kind, and if obsidian is the cure in the books as well, which is another thing that we can't be sure of at all, then this sort of scarcity issue of it's needed badly in the north, it's also needed badly in the south, could be a thing. Any takes on that? Am I reaching here?
Yeah, Radio Westeros, you guys definitely are on team. There's going to be a grayscale epidemic, an outbreak in the books, right?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't like to commit. No, really, I'm not. No.
I again.
Yeah, I don't like to, put my chips down when I'm not really of a strong opinion. I think it could easily pass and, be confined to John Connington's story, using it to accelerate his invasion and rush things. So that could be its purpose. But as Aziz says, it could be he could be patient zero, couldn't he?
Yeah. And here's the thing I forgot to mention. As we know, the historical tidbits George gives us are really important a lot of times for predicting the future of A Song of Ice and Fire. There's a really important anecdote that's both in the World of Ice and Fire and in the main A Song of Ice and Fire books, which is the grayscale outbreak in Old Town. Mm-hmm. So that is part of what's fueling my thoughts on this, is that it's been mentioned a few times, and you know how I feel about things being mentioned multiple times by George in multiple places. That
I'd say I say this a lot. I'm like, I don't theorize about things, and I'm not down with theories, but that's one, I guess, is a theory technically that I'm just like, yeah, that's going to happen. I just feel really strongly that I don't feel strongly that it will be Old Town for sure, or I think it could be the Stormlands area, I think it could be King's Landing, and I think it could be up north, nearer to Shireen. So I'm not so set on the location. I think there could be multiple for all we know, but I think it's going to get real, I was going to say dark, but real gray, I guess.
Nice. I scale what you did there. Let's see here. We have a question from Amber Clark, who found us through Game of Owns. Well, thanks, Game of Owns. She asks, is obsidian a part of the creation for Valyrian steel? I certainly have held this idea for a long time. I believe Radio Westeros, you guys have thought about this as well. Do you guys have a take on that?
I can't remember.
Well,
it was one of
been
your
a
older
long
episodes.
time, man.
Yes,
we have got an episode about this, but wow, it was like 3 years ago.
Well, I can speak to it because I just listened to it.
Nice.
I gave a talk this weekend that this episode was relevant to, so I re-listened to it. And yeah, we talked about obsidian actually being part of the creation of dragon steel, which we were holding was slightly different from Valyrian steel, given sort of timelines and stuff. And in spite of what the show may have shown us, we do think there's probably a little bit of a difference. But
yes, it's possible, isn't it? For sure.
Like if you just compare the properties of the two, right? You've got regular steel is heavy, and obsidian is really light and brittle and sharp. So it's like, well, you get the lightness of obsidian and the durability of steel and the sharpness of obsidian. It seems to fit.
And you have the actual inspiration for Valyrian steel. Damascus steel is like folded over and over in itself, and that you could easily have obsidian be part of that process in the folding process. It is interesting how light, like as in light in color, Valyrian steel is when you contrast it to the color of obsidian. But we even have different colors of obsidian.
But obsidian is generally dark. Like you said, some of this green and purple obsidian, but most of it's black. and Valyrian steel is darker. It's darker. It's like black, dark gray, smoky gray, which also fits really well with the idea that steel and obsidian have been combined. So really, really like this idea. I've been a fan of it for a long time. Apparently you guys have been too, even though Yoke Boy couldn't quite remember it all.
It's okay,
no, it's just,
it's
headcanon.
It's okay, Yoke Boy. You got to chat that you're cute.
There you go. That makes up for it.
Hey guys, it's 1 o'clock here, so remember that. I'm usually in bed at like 9 o'clock, like reading a book, and here I am, taking one for the team.
That's right. Thank you for that, by the way.
No problem.
Even when you're knackered, you can talk Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones, right?
Oh yeah, I do it in my sleep.
Using my British lingo there. I love the word knackered. So here's another question from a couple people. Jane Carmack and Danny the Dreamy and some others are wondering about if Dragonglass is going to have the same importance in the books. It seems like it's a bit too good to be true. Will there be a cure for grayscale in the books? I definitely agree that it seems like it's maybe being used as a bit too much of a cure-all, kind of like how Valyrian steel is being overused a little in the show in place of maybe some of these other things like Dawn and maybe the obsidian blades, etc. Unless there's more to that, but. Yeah, I do think maybe this is the law of conservation of mysterious magical substances.
Yeah, of magic, yeah.
So, I think that's true. Will they cure grayscale in the books? I think so. I think that's going to have to happen. Grayscale's been brought up in so many places. It's been brought up north of the Wall. Like, Wildlings weigh in on Val is chill about everything. She's chill about going into the north alone. She laughs at Selyse in front to her face, But she freaks out about grayscale that's dormant in a child. So that says a lot to me. And the show, we borrowed that by giving those lines to Gilly. So I really, that's funny, by the way. Sam's here working directly on a body of grayscale. Mm-hmm. And Gilly hates that. She's going to be like, you did what? You touched him? You crazy?
You're out.
Don't touch me. You're putting Jimmy hat on from now on. I'm not getting the grayscale.
He's coming home to her. She's like, how was work today, honey? And he's like, fine, nothing new.
Yeah, nothing new. I didn't slice several stone scabs off of a human being.
There's going to be no fat pink mast that evening, is there?
The fat gray mast. Hey-oh. Oh boy. Okay, let us move past the most disgusting location in Westeros to Euron. Somehow that's an upper. Are we really improving our outlook here?
Yeah, imagine if you told us before the season that you'll be moving to, I don't know, lighter, less gross subjects by talking about Euron.
Yes, here we only have mutilation and death and burning. That's nothing.
But before we get to Euron, we have this, as people are calling it, Yalaria scene with Yara and Ilaria, and a scene that reminds us that only Tyene is Ilaria's daughter. What with all of those mama lines that they were saying, it was just like so over the top, heavy-handed, like making fun of her, just...
It was really a good reminder, but yeah.
I mean, people needed to be reminded, but...
I even forgot that I was thinking show Ilaria as the mother of all of them. I forgot about that.
But that scene, I don't know, this is another poor Sand Snake scene with them just, like, picking at each other and, like, saying they're going to kill each other and just having this conflict. I'm like, I guess some sisters are like that, but not these sisters. Like, there's meant to be a pretty good unit.
Bad dialogue all the way to the end for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I kind of cringed through the Sand Snake scene. It's like, is that the depth of their character? They just keep looping this conversation about who they're going to kill. And then, it was followed up with Ilaria and the kind of foreign invasion. And I was like, oh my word. Dawn has been really cursed in this show. They can't even get a few good lines together.
Which we should keep in mind as we analyze what happens here, because it seems like the showrunners can't be ignorant of how much the fandom in general hated how they handled Dorne. So I think they maybe some of the elements to this scene kind of indicate that they're just ready to, we screwed up. Let's just push all this off to the side. We can't fix it. Let's just.
They say that they're not influenced, but I think we all know that they very clearly were. And even like Jessica Henwick, who plays Nymeria Sand, and I think Keisha Castle Hughes, who plays Obara, I think it was her, but definitely Jessica Henwick had a few interviews where she was like, talking about how she thought she was going to have a pretty major role going forward in the show, and then she said it's like changed her opinion, you know, a few interviews later where she was saying that it's really brutal, it's really over the top, and I mean that gotta suck, especially because a lot of those actresses who played the Sand Snakes actually read the books and they know what they're missing out on, and like have been bitterly disappointed by this. Like I just feel so bad for every actor who thought they were getting a certain part because of the book and didn't. Really disappointing. But hey, at least Jessica Henwick is in Star Wars and Marvel and all that, so she's doing okay.
She's doing fine, yeah.
And O'Bara's got like an Emmy.
Yeah.
I mean, an Oscar, not an Emmy.
Oscar. She can be like, y'all can complain about my character all you want. Scoreboard,
And they got an awesome death scene at least. Like, it's got to be a little tricky and fun to like see yourself get strangled. And
by your own weapons,
Gotta be fun.
So, funny anecdote here. I highly recommend the Inside Game of Thrones Battling the Silence feature. It's a 9-minute video on how they made this scene. It's really great. Like, you see these ships like sitting on dry land in front of a huge green screen, and it really just gives you an appreciation for how hard this was to make. Like, you can complain about some of the aspects of the logistics of the scene, but first of all, I don't really care because the show does this stuff all the time with logistics. So I just don't care anymore. I'm jaded on the show's logistics stuff. We don't need to talk about it. Let's talk about the stuff that, you know, actually affects the plot. I really like just the notion of how this attack began. Poor Quentin, our good friend Poor Quentin, he writes for Deadspin now, so definitely check him out. He mentions that the way Euron and his ship enters this scene is kind of how Euron himself enters the narrative. Sudden, surprising, shocking, overpowering. That's awesome. So good job. And we all saw it coming, obviously. Once Tyrion's like, you guys get in this ship and go there. You're like, oh, okay, well, that's that.
All of you unimportant characters, go here.
All of y'all get in one ship and go down. You know, well, it wasn't just one ship, of course, but they were all together.
They were all on one ship, all of them. Really foolishly. I don't know if they would have helped them, but I don't know.
And so there's a lot to unpack in the scene. First of all, the night attack was kind of cool. It makes sure that there's no dragons involved. The dragons can't tell friend from foe. There's like, what's happening? I don't know. Of course, we had Poor Quentin, whom I just mentioned, as a guest for our Euron episode. And here's a great little book nod. Shay's got an awesome image. First of all, Pilu Asbeck is clearly good at playing the berserker type. He was basically Victorian this whole scene until the final moment when he's captured Asha Yara. He had his full plate armor, which you can see the eye. There's the crow's eye in the center of his breastplate. So cool.
With this little black stuff going around it, like feathers almost.
Yes. But he's also got a big axe, which is more in line with Victorian. Even the axe is really ornate and cool. I call it the Kraxon. And he jumps, the way he comes down on that Corvus, the drawbridge thing, which we're going to pull up a shot of in a minute, that's also very much like Victorian. Because in the Victorian Reaver chapter, he jumps to the other ship first, and basically does, come at me, just like, who dares to fight me? And then his men kind of come in behind him. And he's terrifying. And Euron is terrifying. I mean, he's got this wild look in his eyes. He's ready to kill. He's, fearless. And our co-writer Joe Buckley points out that and we've pointed out the same thing, because Euron doesn't have any of his magical aspects like he has in the show, they got to make up for that. So they give him better technology, like these flamethrower things, and like a much bigger ship. Although actually the bigger ship is part of the Iron Fleet in the books as well. That's Silence is much, much larger than Yara's ship here. And the new Iron Fleet, the one Victorian controls that Balon built, was specifically built to deal with larger ships. The regular long ships of the general population of the Ironborn are kind of like the Viking long ships from history, but the Iron Fleet is a cut above. They're big, they have actual large warships, and so that's what we saw here. Silence is one of those large warships instead of, some little long ship type thing. Also, I've been talking for a minute here. Do you guys want to weigh in on any of this? I'm just kind of going off. I just love this scene so much and all the book nods. Make sure
we've got an image here you wanted to have while they think if there's anything they wanted to say. But there's an image here that Aziz had me grab. It was very hard, of this Euron's crew member with this fist spike thing that he uses to pummel someone's face, which is pretty brutal. It's like, I don't know, he's got it going up his arm, too, so he could really get them with it. It's pretty
Giving
badass.
Jamie an idea.
Yeah, it's exactly the sort of thing I've long thought that Jamie needs to do. He might not think it's honorable or anything like that, but he needs to attach some stuff to that hand that is actually useful. You don't get me started on it, basically. But you did bring up an interesting point when you had me grab this image of the crew, in that they missed a huge opportunity in Game of Thrones to have some more diversity in their show, because Euron's crew in the books is actually, an amalgamation of white people.
It's supposed to be multiracial, multi-ethnic, and these were all white dudes, which is, it's just we're kind of used to that, but that doesn't mean we should just accept it. It's fair to criticize that.
Yeah, you can criticize.
It doesn't ruin the scene for me. It doesn't ruin the show. It's just it's a negative aspect that I think that could have been really easy to fix. For one thing, these guys don't even have lines. I mean, they're Euron's crew. They're silent. The one, Ilaria says, hey, make it, do it quickly. And they're like, he just shakes his head, which is cool because it's like, oh, they don't have tongues. Like, it kind of reminded me of that. But again, there should have been some like variety of types there. That would have been nice. So,
but yeah, I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that. There's not a whole lot to say about this fighting scene until we actually get to our talk about Theon's reaction to it, which we'll get to in a second. Yeah. But we'll give you an opportunity if there's anything now.
Yeah. Any other takes on this part, or should we move on to the aftermath, or the big the drawbridge? Here is the huge claw thing. It's a corvus. I called it a corvus in the show only review, which is a Roman invention. This is exactly what they called it in the behind the scenes thing. So I was like, hey, that's cool.
Yeah, so watch that video. This is from that. It was an easier shot for me to grab than the one in the video, because we could actually see this like kraken claw tentacle-y thing.
Yeah.
And it was really funny to watch the video to see him with the green screen come down all
with his just man, so cool. So yeah, just so much awesome in there. So yeah, but there's also some amazing. It's hard for an action scene to include great acting, especially when you have sand snakes with their bad dialogue. It's not their fault. Yeah, corvus is Latin for crow. Good call there, Aerodo. That is accurate.
You're on crow's eye.
Yeah, that crow's eye fixed. Yeah, hey, nice connect. I didn't even catch that part. I didn't even make that connection. It's really obvious. Nice. And yeah, so. Let's see, what else do I have here? A lot of notes. Lost my place. So, okay, let's talk about the sand snakes. The sand snakes, the two dead ones on the prow. That was of Yara's ship, not Silence.
Here
that
we
was
go.
he
Here's
left
a
them
picture
there.
of them.
Yeah,
in case you didn't see this enough. I don't know.
So that's Obara impaled by her own, Obara impaled by her own spears, and Nymeria hanging by her own whip. Of course, you got it. Once you remove...
And that's on the prow of, Yara's ship.
That's how you can tell, because you can see it's on fire there. It's clearly not
Aziz
Silence.
misspoke in our previous episode and called it Silence.
Yeah.
That isn't what he meant. He just misspoke.
Yeah.
To everyone who commented about that.
And so Tyene and Ilaria are captured, and so is Yara. Now, Yara's fate might be different. We got people predicting, like we did. We predicted the same thing, that maybe she'll get the Phalia Flowers treatment. Maybe her tongue will be cut out and she'll be put on Euron's prow. I really hope not. I also really worry about...
That's really not fitting for Yara, considering she's, pan or bi.
Yeah.
Her tongue cut out.
That's true.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
And I really can't help but worry that they'll try to do some sexual violence stuff, since that's Euron's book arc with his abusing his brothers.
Some hot
Maybe they'll...
uncle and niece action. I don't know.
Please don't do that show, but
Oh, please don't.
Yeah, please don't do that show.
Well, Ilaria and Yara are captured together as well.
Yeah. Do you think there's any book implication here? I think it's hard to trace this all together. It's hard to find Euron dealing with the Sand Snakes at all. But it's not out of the question that Euron and Cersei could have a team up in the books. And if so, the Sand Snakes are probably going to do similar things regarding the Lannister children. They are probably going to target them. They are probably going to kill them, and that would put them clearly in Cersei's sights. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think there's any chance that something like this happens in the books, or is it just total show invention here?
I think it's invention. I think that they've cut a lot of corners, and then you get to this thing where I don't think these characters will meet. The Sun Snakes and Euron, no.
Don't think so. I think it's I don't know. I'd say I'm more positive, the negative, but pretty 50-50, pretty ambivalent on the whole matter. But the fact is that Sand Snakes are going to King's Landing. They're going to do some stuff to Cersei, so some of that stuff will happen. Whether Cersei gets revenge on them without Euron being involved is possible as well. But I had thought that it was very possible that Euron would have some connection with Cersei for a while after that prophecy, after that vision from the Forsaken chapter. It had more a weight behind it, even though I still thought it was unlikely. But this is a case for me where the show is slightly influencing me. Tiny bit.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to not try to make those connections, but I agree it's difficult to find them. Here's an interesting possibility for a book to show crossover that's potentially interesting. What if Cersei gives Ilaria and Tyene the Brandon and Rickard treatment, sort of? I kind of don't think so, because I think this is new Cersei, and new Cersei cares more about politics. She's very ruthless, and she's less about revenge. She's already kind of distanced herself from her own children. She's sort of trying to compartmentalize and just not deal with the trauma by pushing past it. And she might care more about just making sure the Dornish armies are either on her side or not against her, at the very least. And if she just kills them both off, that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So maybe she murders Tyene in front of Ilaria, makes her watch, and keeps Ilaria as hostage to keep Dorne in line. Or...
I just wanted to say that I know that we just forget about logistics when it comes to Dorne, but like Tyene should be the prize here, not Ilaria. Tyene should be the one that could actually be an heir to Dorne because she's Oberyn's daughter.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're gonna care about any of that, but like
they seem to already have dealt with that by Ilaria's in charge. They've already kind of
although I still wonder, is Ilaria in charge because she's the daughter, the mother of Tyene, who, actually has some sort of claim on it. She's the only one who has a real claim on it now that the other Sand Snakes are dead.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Tyene's a pretty good, bargaining chip and pawn. I really don't think the show's going to be logical about this, though.
Joe Buckley suggests that maybe Tyene or Ilaria will get shot through by the Scorpion Bolt, which would be a callback to Joffrey and his crossbow gaming.
That's what I was thinking.
Tyene should ask for a trial by combat and face Robert Strong.
She did mention, I want to fight the mountain. Maybe that's where this is going, that Septa Unella's going to get a companion.
She's going to fight Bronn.
Ooh. Yeah, that's an interesting crossover. Is Bronn going to be involved in this at any point? He's going to see this and be like, oh no. Or we had one theory that that Bronn's going to help Tyene escape. Seems pretty unlikely, but I like the thought. We are definitely running out of time, so if you have a burning question, get it in there with Super Chat. Well, here we go.
Hashtag save the bad pussy.
No question, but thanks, Mike, for the for the comment. If you miss it before Super Chat, it works just like that. You see it up there on the screen. It'll hold that comment there for a while, so make sure we see it. So here's a big question, though. This is the gift, right? This is the gift that Euron meant. Not just destroying the Iron Fleet, but capturing the murderers of Cersei's daughter. The murderers of Cersei's daughter. So, is Cersei going to marry Euron now? Is that going to happen? Any thoughts?
Why not?
I don't know. My
thought is that reading the episode description for next week might give you a clue, but I don't want to say it in this episode because it's...
we're going to discuss that, by the way, in our Saturday stream. That episode description is going to be part of our description. I want to say also, without saying exactly what it is, that I think that line is ambiguous. I think you can read it either way, which is what makes it interesting.
Cool.
So, yeah. Whew. It doesn't look good for Ilaria and Tyene in any case. So I think the bottom line is no matter what happens to either of them, no matter how this plays out, no matter whether Cersei goes full-on Mad Queen or whether she plays it more as a politician, more Machiavellian, the Dornish army is just gone. They're just out. They're not involved. And that makes a lot of sense, because like what we said, they want to get rid of them. They screwed it up. Let's just get rid of them. Don't worry about it. Just push it off. Also, as Sean mentioned yesterday in our show only, if they have to bring the Dornish army into this on screen, that's a whole nother army of costumes, and that's just a whole nother big budget thing. So I totally understand why they just we can't have they're already going to have Unsullied, Dothraki, Reachmen, different types of Reachmen, Tarly soldiers. You got Whites, you got White Walkers. Yeah, I can understand why they don't want to also have a big Dornish army in there. So, I'm gonna guess that Cersei doesn't marry Euron. I haven't been spoiled at all. I'm gonna guess that she's like, nah, she's gonna find a way to keep him at arm's length because, I mean, you wouldn't. Would you trust him?
No, I think she'll find a way to weasel out of it if she can too. Yeah.
So here's a funny little thing. You know, we mentioned the inside the episode, but here's another little tidbit from outside. Apparently, Pilu Asbæk, who is very funny in that.
That's Euron.
That's Euron in that behind the scenes thing. He's really funny, very charismatic guy. He apparently was a nanny to Nikolai Coster-Waldau's kids at one point. From nanny to pirate, crazy pirate captain. They're both Danish, so I guess Denmark's even smaller than we thought. Small world there.
Are those kids suffering from PTSD by now?
That's Jamie wasn't acting. Nikolai wasn't acting in that scene. He was like, you really shouldn't trust this guy. You know what he did to my kids? Real kids, So, okay, let's talk about Theon. This was maybe the biggest part of all this. Theon, first of all, Alfie's acting so good. But one of the things that may have triggered him here at the end is seeing the cutting, the maiming of bodies around him as the Ironborn kind of looted people by cutting off earrings and cutting out gold teeth. I didn't see any tongue cutting here. People were saying tongue cutting was happening. I went back and looked very carefully. I just didn't see it. I didn't see tongue cutting. I saw other stuff. Did you guys see tongue cutting?
No, same. I thought it was ears and teeth, which is looting for gold, isn't it?
Yeah. But it has the same effect on Theon either way, right? So, Yoke Boy, tell us what you thought about this really powerful scene here.
Okay, so, and a lot of people are thinking this now, on reflection. Theon's apparent cowardice with Yara in not trying to save her and this avoid capture really speaks to his PTSD and his psychological wounds as Reek. I really hope there's a heroic act left in Theon, but this really wasn't the time for it. The writers did well to kind of portray a truly damaged individual suddenly having to, confront his deep fears. A lot of people who suffer traumas are damaged for life and are cursed with ongoing frailty. And I think that was articulated very well by Alfie and, whoever was behind the writing as well. Despite cursing him initially, which I'm sure, a lot of the audience did, I think really Theon is worth some sympathy here, and that's what they're getting at.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. Any other takes on that? Did anyone have any different kind of looks at it?
No, I agree. I think we probably all agree. Tremendous acting by Alfie Allen. I really saw the shame in his struggle on his face. One thing that struck me is, as much as we've kind of pointed this out before, that Euron is the new and improved Ramsay, as in the same way that Ramsay was the new and improved Joffrey. Well, imagine being Theon now confronted by this trigger. I mean, he's seeing this as the new and improved Ramsay too.
Yes.
So just put yourself in that place and really difficult position for him. We saw Theon jump in what looked like certain death to save his foster sister at the end of season 5, and I thought there was sort of a parallel here to that scene where he jumped away from saving his real sister this time. It was a kind of tragic inversion. So I personally hope he's going to survive and he's going to make it back to Dragonstone.
Yeah, I thought this was, a really fantastic sequence in general, and I think it started even in that Yalaria scene where I was watching it and I was enjoying the chemistry between the two characters. I was laughing at Yalaria's ridiculous come-ons, but at the same time I was noticing how uncomfortable Theon was, and it wasn't just this, my sister's being sexual and uncomfortableness. No, I think that was very similar to the sort of things that Theon would have been through with Ramsay in terms of, teasing him and being very, voyeuristic about things and making him watch. And Ilaria is very on the nose with that. And just Ilaria just so awful sometimes and brutal and revenge filled. And I think she also reminded me of Ramsay in that moment. And so I think Theon was already on edge in that moment. I think he would have been triggered regardless what happened, but I think he was already off to a rough start there.
Yeah, the burden. Yeah, the burden that that Yara put on him when she called him her protector in that scene.
Yeah.
No, he didn't look like he was happy with that.
It was a
Role.
strong parallel, like Laria holding on, kind of jokingly to, Yara, and then a minute later, Euron's
foreign invasion.
Different foreign invasion. Well, I guess it wasn't foreign. Euron and Yara are both Ironborn, but could have been foreign if Euron's crew was more diverse. What's next for Theon, Yoke Boy?
Okay, so I am like spoiler sensitive, so I haven't like read up. But you know what I'd like is for Theon now to join the Night's Watch as Maester Luwin advised him to all that time ago, because it would keep him in the story. If if Yara's a goner, what's Theon got left? It'd be nice to see him, placed in the story where he can be involved and interact with other characters and be absolved of his sins, as perhaps he should have done in season 2.
Right on. We have both Iron Throne and Twitter user MILFbuster are suggesting that MILFbuster. They are suggesting that
MILFbuster 1.
MILFbuster 1, excuse me, not the second or third one, the original. Could go. This is crackpotty, but I think it's a clever idea, even though I don't think it's going to happen. I just think it's fun to think about. They could go Patchface or Aeron Damphair with Theon here. He could stick in the water for a while, and I think Patchface. They're not going to do Patchface, but it's a cool thought. But Aeron, Aeron was dramatically changed by sticking in the water for a while. Maybe something will happen to Theon.
By the way, I've seen a lot of jokes about this, but it really was what my instant reaction was, as much as it seemed would be really weird and bizarre for them to do this. I just wanted Gendry to throw up and save Theon.
I'll repeat my earlier joke. Blackwater Baywatch. Do your job, Blackwater Baywatch.
Gendry's got the looks for it.
That's right, he does.
That's the new spinoff. It's got everything they love. Drama, hot bodies,
That's totally, they shouldn't do this other show they're talking about doing. They should do Blackwater Baywatch.
I'd love to see Theon and Gendry have one oar each and, ride off into the sunset on their boat.
Lord of the Chicken Dance asks, let's assume the entire fleet, Yara/Theon's side, was destroyed by Euron, which it definitely appears it was. Like, at one point, Yara gazes out over the ocean and is like, holy crap, this is not just my ship, it's all of our ships are just torched and destroyed.
You think so? I didn't think so. I didn't see, any Dornish sails
or
Tyrell
they're
sails.
half of the Iron Fleet. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was thinking we definitely still have Tyrell and Dornish and Targaryen ships.
Well, maybe not Dornish ships anymore. Those may be off the table, too.
Yeah, you're right.
And the Tyrell ships as well, because Olenna may be usurped, so she may really be...
Well, my thought was that when we see Daenerys coming to Westeros, we see that they have the Tyrell and Martell ships with her, so I don't know if they split off and have done other things, or if they're still under her control and her
fair
command.
point. This is one.
I also wonder who leads the. I guess Yara was in charge of her ships. She was like the master of ships, I would assume.
Yeah,
and
I guess so.
Someone has to take control of the ships now.
Oh, there's Gendry's new motto. Stephanie Vale says, "Ours is the fury." It's the new Gendry.
Yeah. That's
motto.
Really good.
Nice. Nice. So we don't really know. This is one of those logistical questions that's pretty hard to handle because the show isn't consistent with logistics. So that makes it difficult to make predictions. But I think the bottom line is going to be maintained, which is that Daenerys' naval strength is severely reduced, and how they better address this because she just lost a ton of ships, and now her plans have changed dramatically. She can no longer use the Dornish army to besiege King's Landing, so a different plan is needed, and we'll have to wait and see what that's going to be. All right, last few chances to get your questions in. We got a couple still.
Almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah, jeez. And we have Casanova here, the cat. This is look at his eyes.
I got my hand wrapped around his throat.
Yeah, you're
Cat's so funny.
You're giving Jon Snow to the cat there. No, this is a gentle neck holding.
Yeah, he loves it.
Solid internet tactic. Bring on a cat and everyone loves it. Nice.
Yeah.
That is a true comment there.
Yeah. This is Casanova Leslie who asked the game of the cats.
Yeah, he's about 2.5 years old. This guy. So we've got a couple of miscellaneous questions and time for any others. If you can sneak them in, we're gonna be wrapping it up here shortly. From Painkiller Jane. I wonder if you guys noticed that Sandor's speech to Beric was similar to Valar's speech about his father to Dunk. Now, that's a deep cut, but I do think there's some comparison here. Here's the quote from Valar in The Hedge Knight. My father was only 9 and 30. He had it in him to be a great king, the greatest since Aegon the Dragon. Why would the gods take him and leave you? Yeah, that is very similar. The question, like, why the mystery, how, the mystery of how the gods work and how, why is it Beric? That's true. That's a good comparison. Okay, so I guess we don't have any other burning questions here. So let's move to our worry of the week. Mine's still Olenna. I had that for yesterday. I'm going to keep it there. So I'll let you guys weigh in on what yours are.
Mine's Grey Worm. It's Olenna too. Like I care most about Olenna. I don't really think she's doomed this week though, for one. But I had to say something different. But Grey Worm, I care more about him than I've ever cared about him in the past. It's true. Also, because it isn't really related to that episode or anything, but I liked the actor who plays him more, Jacob Anderson. After I watched the Comic-Con panel, and he was like, they asked if you could bring anyone back, who you bring back, and he was like, Barristan. And I was just happy that he said that. I don't know.
Bring back his buddy. That's right.
Also, I heard him. I've heard his music before. Raleigh Ritchie is his name, but I'd never heard his talking voice.
Yeah.
And he's good at his accent for Grey Worm. He's very, very British sounding normally. Anyways, kudos to him, because that's a hard role to pull off, to be so stoic, but to have so much emotion behind your eyes.
So, Beth Peterson says, what about a dragon on our worry? It was Zigzag. Yes, the Rickon joke absolutely applies to these dragons. What do you guys think about a dragon death? I think maybe eventually, but maybe not next week. Any takes on that?
Yeah, I'm definitely, we said so earlier, definitely concerned about a dragon death. And I just want to give a shout out to one Rob Dylan, who was our guest musician back on our, which episode was that? Ninth episode? Oh, and the Fears for the Long Night, the episode we talked about earlier. He predicted that the mountain would kill a dragon after seeing just season 1 of the show. So we're all kind of cheering for that to be a thing.
Sean actually offered a theory yesterday on how that might happen. The scorpion bolts could take a dragon out, disable its wings, and then it would be on the ground. It wouldn't be able to fly away.
I think they should just put the mountain in the scorpion and shoot him.
And he just launches through the air and hits the dragon and climbs on its back and just starts to, super mountain.
Remember Gregor, this Rob Dylan was actually talking about Gregor and his horse, and saw foreshadowing in there. So if there's anyone you're ever going to send to kill a dragon on the ground, I guess that would be
the mountain that flies. Yeah, maybe he'll ride a dragon, right? Swizzle Sticks, $2 super chat. Thank you, sir. Or yes, sir. Okay. Did the Mad King die before? Wait, what did it say?
Before Rhaegar or Lyanna?
No. Rhaegar died. Rhaegar died first, then the Mad King, and then Lyanna, in that order.
So no and yes.
Yeah. So, Yoke Boy, what is your worry? We didn't get that in yet.
Okay, this is an out of the box worry. I'm worried about all of those people who really didn't want Danny and John to get together. Because next week there is going to be some tensions in that room.
Yeah, you know who you are. It all starts next week.
John might not know he's a Targaryen, but he's going to get certain urges, I guarantee it.
I don't think any of us here in this room, in this chat room, I don't know why I said that, are shippers. But okay, if you guys had to pick, Daenerys versus Jon Snow.
Oh, God.
Who would you
That's
have
a tough choice.
Up? Make you guys choose incest or incest.
Oh,
which one?
God.
Cousins or aunts and uncles?
I guess I'll go Daenerys because I've been used to the idea a lot longer.
Yeah.
Because that's been around since 1996, whereas Jon Sansa, that's a lot more of a less recent. So both of them, I've had longer to get used to the idea of that one. What about you guys?
Jon and Arya, someone Geek Furious says. They're even closer. Okay, what about you guys? You guys have an answer for me for this question?
I think a pure Targaryen incest is far more palatable.
All right. Starks were into it. Even John's grandparents.
Jaria, like the
I
names
like
here.
Johnson for a lot of
Jansen.
reasons. I think
Okay.
I think John and Daenerys is more likely. But
Yeah, I'll
I
agree with you.
prefer the other.
I agree with you. I think John and Daenerys is more palatable because they don't know each other. They didn't grow up together. I think that's
Yeah.
the issue with Johnson. Not that they're cousins or anything, but I think that it would make a lot of good sense from a political standpoint. So again, I know none of us are like into the shipping thing, but I had to know where we all stood.
Okay, Euron's into the shipping thing. He shipped himself with Yara's ship, and they
Yeah.
got together.
Yeah, he rammed her.
He's really aggressive, though. Yeah. Okay, so let's do our favorite scenes and episode rating. We didn't do the episode rating last week, so we got to make up for that. So we got to rate episode 1 and 2 as we do this. I'll start. My favorite scene was the skulls, the dragons with all the history, and Cersei's power, giving the touch of Qyburn letting her pull the trigger. I thought was a really nice touch. So I'll go with that one, and I'll give episode 1 a slightly higher rating than episode 2. I think I'll give episode 1 a 9. I'm gonna give this one. I'm tempted to give it an 8.5, but I think I'll go with an 8.25. So I'm gonna go with that. What do you got? What do you think, Shea?
I liked episode 1 more than episode 2. Episode 1 didn't have anything that I was like, rabble, and irritating. Episode 2 definitely had at least one thing, which was the sand snake scene, and probably a couple other things that I'm not thinking of. So that's how I tend to choose. Is there something egregious that really irked me in this episode? Wasn't the case for episode 1. Favorite scene from this episode? I really liked, honestly, that Daenerys Olenna scene, and I really liked the scene with. It's really hard to choose.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
is.
go with just the Olenna scene, just because it seemed so natural for it to happen, but it was so honestly surprising to me that we got just a beat with them too. I didn't even mention the Varys scene. I liked that whole sequence of their council. I mean, that's my answer. Okay.
Okay, Lady Gwen, what do you got?
Yeah, it's really hard to choose because there's actually so many. There's Arya and Nymeria. I like the Theon just for Alfie's acting. But I think I'm gonna have to go with Arya and Hot Pie. Just overall the scene because I found it very poignant. And then
Nice.
of course at the end when she turned her horse north, I was very audibly excited by that. So, and I'd have to give I liked also episode 1 better. I would give that pretty high marks, especially for a first episode. This one lost like some marks for the bad sand snakes, but then the sand snakes died, so back a little bit. So,
They won't be talking anymore.
no more of that. So I don't know, 8.5 or so.
Okay. And Yoke Boy.
By the way, just real quick, people say, like, it's good the sand snakes died, yada yada. I agree with them, but I really hated the way that they died. Just Euron fucking Greyjoy
Of all
murdering
people.
them. I'm like, man, that's a slap in the face. Anyways, that was bittersweet.
Yeah, killing with their own weapons too. Like, geez,
With
yeah,
their own
harsh.
weapons, I'm like, just these two tiny little women, and Euron just bashes through. Okay.
I tweeted out today, by the way, my birthday's November 25th, and if anyone's feeling generous, I want Euron's axe, the Craxon gimme.
All right, so
I want that. Yoke Boy, what about you?
All right, I'll give the points to Arya and Nymeria,
Cool.
but I will say I wish HBO hadn't have kind of shown that it was going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It kind of like given a really cheap way to give away a really amazing surprise. So
Yeah.
I can't imagine watching it if you didn't know. You'd be like, whoa! But still, I thought it was a really good scene. I like that one. I'll give the episode an 8. You know, pretty good. By Game of Thrones standards, not the best, but by normal TV standards, I think it's a pretty good episode of TV.
Do you like episode 1 more?
I would probably put them about the same, I think.
Okay. So 3 out of 4 of us said episode 1 was better, and you had them about the same. That's cool. It looks like most people in the chat box liked episode 1 more. So, well, whatever that means, that's just a little bit of trivia. So, okay, well, let's wrap it up. Let me issue some thanks. First of all, thanks to Radio Westeros. Thanks again for joining us, guys. Make sure to support their Patreon and check out their show on iTunes, on Google Play, And at RadioWesteros.com, tell us about your most recent episodes. I think last week we mentioned your most recent episode. Maybe tell us about the one before that.
What have we got? We've got a good. This year we did a good two-parter on Robb Stark. Two episodes. We go in tremendous depth about his, political ambitions and what went wrong and whose fault it was. And it's a long piece of character analysis. Come and give it a try. If you've never, heard a Radio Westeros episode, come and find us on iTunes or YouTube. Go to RadioWesteros.com. Give us a subscribe, and we'd really appreciate it.
And I mentioned that we have patrons-only episodes. You guys have a patrons-only episode too, at least one, right? It's just one at this point, right? The Varamir episode.
Yeah, it's just one. It's on Varamir. It's a look at that prologue and skin changing and all the possibilities and all the interesting lump story that you get in the fantastic Varamir prologue. Be our patron and at the entry level patronage, and you can get access to that and more.
Right on. We have El Clarkino 18 saying, I listen to Radio Westeros more than my wife. Okay. That's high praise.
More than his wife does, or more than... I guess.
Both.
Both.
Probably both. Also, a shout out to Game of Owns for having a show on Sunday, and just in general, Game of Owns, good friends of ours, and to Rawrist for having me on Sunday. Both of us guested on someone else's show on Sunday.
I was extra stoked. Aziz is invited to be on things all the time, but they never invite me. This was they're gonna have Sean on too. I don't feel so special because they're also inviting Sean, but they wanted to get the non-Aziz members.
Yeah, get me out of the way.
You just got him everywhere.
You guys heard me too much. That's right. Okay, so also thanks to Michael Klarfeld for our video intro, which we have been using as the outro for the live episodes, and he made all these maps. The dude is on...
He's making
is
Iron
skilled.
Islands maps right now, actually.
Yes.
Very fitting with this Ironborn
Following
action.
him on social media pays off big time, but also go to his website, claradox.de. That's KLARADOX.de. So check him out. You can get some of the things that we have for yourself. Also, thanks to Joey Townsend for our intro music, Jesse Coal for the cover of our outro music that we use, or a cover of our intro music that we use for our outro. Also, thanks to Azani for the Mazla Cartho art. And one thing I've started just as of last episode is we're going to start giving a couple of shout-outs to patrons who don't have a regular shout-out, just to get some of these other cool names mentioned. I like a lot of these names. And some of you guys have asked for shout-outs. This is a way that we can handle that. So first off, shout-out to Black-Eyed Lily. Shout out to Sir Mark of House Price. The motto, the price is right. Wielder of the Valyrian seal sword Kindness. Shaya's favorite there.
That is my
Killing
favorite.
with kindness.
That is actually my favorite sword name from Crusader Kings 2, where that can be your sword name, which is, it's just so good. The only one that comes close is in the books, Truth. There's a Rogare that can strike people with truth.
Speaking of Crusader Kings, we have been working on, we haven't launched it yet, but we're figuring out how to do some live streaming of some of the games, some of the Song of Ice and Fire games that we play. We can invite you all to
Crusader
watch.
Kings 2 and Mountain Blade Warband, which we could each play. Because my computer, it can run these streams, so I guess it can run a gaming stream.
Yeah, we're working on that, so we'll be announcing that. It may not happen during the season because we're so busy during the season. But
I want it to happen during the season.
We'll see. We'll hopefully get it out.
This is a rare case of Aziz being more cautious than me.
Yeah. I'm just so misaligned on when to say it'll take a while and when to say it'll be it'll be soon. Okay, also thanks to Nate the Barber of Oakenshield and the Iron Victory. On point name there. Not Newt the Barber, Nate the Barber.
Yeah.
And thanks to, as well, our Hand of the King, the mysterious BR, our Lord Jim the Fortuitous of Wars and Politics of Ice and Fire blog and Warden of the West. Lord George Stormsville the Cunning is Lord of the Chiliad and Warden of the East. Cupbeth the Unfrozen is Lord of the Bricks and Castle Crimson Light, Defender of the Old Gods and Warden of the North. Lady Kelly McMath of Covington is Lady of the Villa Hills and Crescent Springs and Warden of the South. Koholkoi is Master of the Bow called Sun Piercer, of avenging those in need who have been dealt with injustice. The Small Council is made up of Lord James Inkblade, the Scholar Knight and Master of Whisperers. Grand Maester Saria of the Barrows is Cinder of the Citadel. Lord Robert Jacobs is Master of Coin. Rosie the Clever is Master of Laws. Lord James Tuttle is Master of Ships. Lords and ladies in their castles include Lady Direliz of Castle Nyaki, the Alpha Patron. Lord Dan of the Red Mountains and Castle Great Bell, Breaker of the Second Stone. I think we saw you in the chat there, buddy. Lord Skip of the Veld is Lord of Castle Ganges. Mary Meg is Lady of the Bloody Stepstones. Gregor the Toasty is Lord of the Bread Fort. Saw you today, too. Thanks, buddy. Alicia Everlasting of the Green Blood is Lady of Desert Rose. Lord Ryan is of Castle Stonegate and Guardian of the Rocky Mountain Pass. Lord Garen de Haviland is of Devil's Hand Keep. Ashlyn Winter is the Hawk's Eye and Lady of Castle Skyfall. Lady Mikkel of Moonacre is leader of the Werewood Protectorate Alliance. The Lord of the Halls of Castle Hillcrest is wielder of the Valyrian steel machete, Everglazed. Lord Alistair Whitaker is Lord of the Dawnhold. Lord Bemmy Snugglebunny is guardian of the hidden 100-acre Werewood and holder of the Vorpal Snugglebunny. Lord Osborne is of Castle Werewood, spreading the old gods by planting werewood saplings in the Reach, Stormlands, and Crownlands. An appropriate motto, our roots run deep. Lord Brandon Brewer of Castle Blackroon is sworn alesmith to House Stark, Grand Maester of the Zithomancer's Guild, and Keeper of the Buzz. Lord Imriel is of House Jourdain. Brian the Defender is Lord of the Spear Fort and the Freelands, last scion of Clan McCulloch, Strength and Courage. The Bastard of Wolfswood is First Forester of the Old Gods, sworn to House Iron Werewood. Motto, listen for the silence. Our King's Justice is Sir Troy the Steady, wielder of the Valyrian steel blade Fate. Our King's Guard is commanded by Sir Christopher Dane of Starfall, Sentinel of the Torrentine. And last but certainly never least is the History of Westeros Night's Watch, commanded by Lord Commander Daenerys Flint of the Night Fort, avenging the memory of Danny, brave Danny. First Ranger Fabian Flowers is the Bastard of Greenshield. First Builder Patchface is of Motley Wisdom. And First Steward Sir Jurian of the Torrentine is called Palewind. That does it for our patrons. That does it for our thanks. So thanks to everybody who came to join us live today. We really appreciate it. It really helps make the live episodes better. Most people just listen to it afterwards, but you all who come to participate, well, extra thanks to you. But thanks to anyone who listens to it, anyone who likes us on iTunes. Same goes for people who do the same for Radio Westeros. There's a lot of ways to support the show. It's not just patrons. It's not just by asking questions, spreading the word, giving us likes, upvotes, telling your friends. All those things. We appreciate them all. Thank you very much. We love our community. And we'll be back on Saturday with some predictions and theories about episode 3. And back at our usual times next week. Actually, not our usual times. We're going to move this live stream. Instead of doing 2 nights in a row, which is pretty hectic, especially for getting everything edited, we're going to move this one to either Wednesday or Thursday. That may vary depending on the week. But that's more of what we did last year anyway. And it gives us a little more time to think things through. And it gives you all a little break in between. So it gives you guys time to think about things more as well. That will change the type of questions we get as well. So that's good.
Submit your questions so that we can actually get them in. I like reading them in the live chat, but it is like a 2% chance that your questions actually get chosen.
Yeah, it is hard. It is really hard. Yes, and that also, by the way, Beth Peterson says Yolkboy needs to talk more. We would tend to agree, but the more moving this stream to Wednesday will give us more time to prepare. It will allow him to write in more. But also, I got to mention his internet. He's in England, and it's a little hard. It's harder for him to jump in because he's on a slight delay. So I just wanted to say that we're not pushing him off to the side. There's a technical reason, a logistical reason. And unlike Game of Thrones, we explain our logistical reasons.
It's true, but I do have the best words.
The best words, bigly, and the best accent too.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So. Well, anyway.
And the best bedtime.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Also, that's another thing. He's up late. Anyway, thanks, guys. We appreciate it all. We'll be back soon, and we'll be seeing you soon. Thanks again. Valar, reread us. Valar, rewatch us. And see you next time.